We're streaming now. We're streaming now. Yeah. 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 We're streaming now. We're streaming now. Hello. I'm tired. I worked today. Although I'm not as tired as last week. Like, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good. Got good sleep in. Felt pretty good about how today went. Feeling strong overall. Still doing my working out. Not as crazy as last week, though. Not as crazy as last week, which I'm a little bit like, I kind of wish it was. One thing that's definitely happened to me while I'm doing the workout is I'm really realizing, or rather not while I'm doing the workout, but anyway, when I'm living my life now that I've been doing the workout, it makes me really realize how little I actually use my shoulder joint when I'm moving my arms. This is something that I've been really noticing, especially today. I really was noticing it. It's something I hope to keep in my consciousness for a long time. Is like when I would be moving my arms around, hey Anemone, how you doing? Or like reaching for things or any of this kind of stuff. I'm not using my shoulder joint to move my arm, to go like, to kind of go like that. That I'm actually using my shoulders themselves, like my shoulder blades. I'm like moving my shoulder blades and my upper torso around. And so I'm kind of staying like this while moving my shoulder blades around and doing like this kind of stuff. And I'm not actually extending my arm and using the mobility in my shoulder when I do activities. And this sort of reduced mobility, of course, carries with it a great deal of weakness. Right? I'm literally not even lifting my own arm, let alone like weights or any of that kind of stuff in my day-to-day life. And then it's also, so that puts a ton of pressure on my neck, my shoulder blades, my upper kind of core area, which explains a lot. It's where a lot of my pain lives. I live in a lot of pain, usually, in that kind of area. And it's since I've been working out, and since I've sort of been figuring that out and sort of extending my arms, finding my shoulder blade. Even now, with just this like simple stuff that I've been doing here, I feel it in my shoulders. Like, for real. Like, I feel like I've been, over the last little while, I've just not been like, B, aggressive, B-E, aggressive. So I feel like that's a big win for me. That's a big win. Like losing mobility in your shoulders. Can you imagine it? Can you imagine just completely losing mobility in your shoulders? So that's the win for me, and I'll take it. I'll take it. Look at Dizzy, good to see you. That guy, Seraphim, an absolute pleasure to see you guys. An absolute pleasure to see you guys. I'm so happy that you're all here. What a blessing. What a blessing for all of us to be here. What a blessing for all of us to come together. So who wants to talk about some serious shit instead of some fucking balloons? Huh? Are you a side sleeper, John? That could mess with your shoulders too. I totally am. I totally am a side sleeper. And that's not going to stop. That's never going to stop. I can't, even if I tried to sleep on my back, I would roll over to my shoulders, for sure. I think it's more about strength at this point. I think it's about strength. Like, I don't think it's about, like, a position or anything. I think it really is just about strength. And I also got to get a better couch. This couch is, like, 15 years old, and it's, like, falling apart. Straight up falling apart. Like, the seat that I'm sitting on has, like, completely bottomed out. Like, there's just nothing left to it. So I have to use, like, wedge things up and all that. That guy's here for the serious balloons. I mean, look, there is a disaster happening in Ohio that people are beginning to describe as a Chernobyl-level event. Like, let's really take this in, and let's really be serious about what's going on, all right? There is a Chernobyl level event happening in a town in Ohio called East Palestine. Let's take a look at it. Google Maps. East Palestine, yeah. East Palestine. Zoom it out a little bit. Zoom it out a little bit. Yep. Palestine like the county. That's right. East Palestine. Just northwest of Pittsburgh, south of Youngstown. If I'm... Did I screw this up already? East Palestine. Yeah. Okay. There has been a train derailment. Command Genius, how you doing, bud? A train derailment. Okay? There's been a train derailment in East Palestine. I think The Guardian has actually done a decent job of actually describing this event. I'm just going to read this because I think they've done a really good job. 5 days after a train carrying vinyl chloride derailed and exploded near the Ohio-Pennsylvania border, crews ignited a controlled burn of toxic chemicals to prevent a much more dangerous explosion. Thousands in East Palestine, a town of about 5,000 people, evacuated, and officials warned the controlled burn would create a phosgene and hydrogen chloride plume across the region. Phosgene is a highly toxic gas that can cause vomiting and breathing trouble and was used as a weapon in the First World War. Though no one died in the accident, the catastrophe serves as a wake-up call to the potential for more deadly freight trail derailments. Public health advocates warn. By one estimate, 25 million Americans live in an oil train blast zone, and had the derailment occurred just a few miles east, it would be burning in downtown Pittsburgh, with tens of thousands of residents in immediate danger. Ineffective oversight and a largely self-monitoring industry that has cut the nation's rail workforce to the bone in recent years as it puts record profits over safety is responsible for the wreck, said Ron Kamidkow, an Amtrak locomotive engineer and former Norfolk Southern freight engineer. The Palestine wreck is the tip of the iceberg and a red flag, said Kamidkow, who is secretary for the Railroad Workers United, a nonprofit labor group that coordinates with the nation's rail unions. If something is not done, then it's going to get worse, and the next derailment could be cataclysmic. About 4.5 million tons of toxic chemicals are shipping by rail each year, and an average of 12,000 rail cars carrying hazardous materials pass through cities and towns each day, according to the U.S. Department of Transportation. The latest accident comes after 47 people were killed in the town of Lac-Mégantic, Quebec, in 2013 when a runaway train exploded. In February 2020, a crude oil train derailed and exploded outside Guernsey, Saskatchewan, and an ethanol train in Kentucky derailed and burst into flames a week later. The Pittsburgh region alone has seen 8 trail derailments over the last 5 years, according to the public health advocacy group Rail Pollution Protection Pittsburgh, and about 1,700 annually occur nationally. The causes of the Pittsburgh accidents highlight the myriad ways in which things can go wrong. A crack in a track ignored by a rail company caused a 2018 derailment, while another train hit a dump truck at a crossing with inadequate safety equipment. A broken axle on a train car is thought to be the source of the East Palestine accident. Up to 50% of volatile bacon crude oil refined on the East Coast currently runs through Metro Pittsburgh, RPPP estimates, and about 176,000 Pittsburghers live in the derailment blast zone. Rail traffic is projected to increase through the region as a new Shell plastic plant comes online, and rail infrastructure, like tracks and bridges, are in a precarious state, said Glenn Olkhurst, founder of RPPP. The railroads are playing Russian roulette with Pittsburgh, he said. We are a prime candidate for a major derailment and explosion. Still, the U.S. Transportation Department in 2020 approved a rule to allow liquefied natural gas, or LNG, to be shipped via rail with no additional safety regulations. Trains can now run 100 or more tank cars filled with 30,000 gallons of the substance, largely from shale fields to saltwater ports. The decision was opposed by local leaders, unions, fire departments, and the NTSB. The risks of catastrophic LNG releases and accidents is too great not to have operational controls in place before large blocks of tank cars and unit trains proliferate, the NTSB wrote in a comment on the proposed rule. Just 22 train tank cars filled with LNG hold the same amount of energy as the Hiroshima bomb, a coalition of environmental groups wrote in comments to regulators opposing the LNG rail rule change in 2020. That is raising fears of a catastrophe if a proposed LNG port is built in New Jersey, which could take shipments from 2 100-car trains daily that would run through nearby Metro Philadelphia. An LNG fire is extremely difficult for local crews to contain, and shipping it via rail is an extremely dangerous practice, said Natural Resources Defense Council senior attorney Kimberly Ong. We've been astonished by the effect that the spillage of 5 cars of vinyl chloride has had at the Pennsylvania-Ohio border, but that would be nothing compared to the effects of a similar derailment of LNG, she added. In Florida, plans to expand passenger rail service also seemed designed to increase LNG shipment capacity by the company behind the effort, said Susan Mayhell, coordinator of the Alliance for Safer Trains. The public safety advocacy group fears higher speed passenger trains sharing tracks with freight trains carrying LNG and other chemicals could ignite a disaster like that in East Palestine. Eastern Ohio is less dense than most of where Florida's lines run, Mayhale added. An LNG explosion in denser East Florida would likely be much more deadly, she said. There's no evacuation because you're dead, so it's very frightening, Mayhale said. Under the Biden administration, the Transportation Department has proposed a suspension of the Trump-era LNG rule, allowing the substance to be transported via rail and to replace it with a new rule. The suspension was supposed to be published by June 2022, but it and the new rule have been delayed twice and are now supposed to be final in March, Ong said. I don't know if this is a priority for DOT, she added. The Railroad Worker United pinned the threat on rail industry cuts to inspection staff and the elimination of safety protocol. The East Palestine train was hurried, the nonprofit said in a statement, and though a cause hasn't been fully determined, it appears the train was not properly inspected. Rail companies laid off more than 20,000 rail workers during a year period in 2018 to 2019, representing the biggest layoff in rail since the Great Recession, and the nation's rail force has dipped below 200,000, the lowest level ever, and down from the 1 million at its peak. They have cut the hell out of the workforce, and there are big plans to cut it further, Kamenkow said. Just because the rail companies are profitable doesn't mean they're healthy. Just crazy brutal. Crazy brutal. Like crazy brutal, dude. And like I'm seeing videos of like a town's entire pet population, chickens, animals of all kind, just dying. There's absolutely no way the citizens of East Palestine don't end up with huge amounts of health problems. Like there's just no way. Given the toxicity of the chemical, and even during the burn, the idea that the citizens of that place are going to like be fine, I think you're crazy. I think you're absolutely just like you think you're the king of France crazy if you're trying to tell me that. This is an enormous crisis, and the fact that it's happening at the same time when we're all supposed to be losing our minds about a balloon, right? They're spending like $300,000 a shot to take down some balloons and shit. They're spending millions and millions of dollars to blow up balloons to obviously distract from this pretty overt and obvious catastrophe that they could use that money on that instead. Like just increase your safety protocols. Like, that's it. Just increase your safety protocols, spend a little bit more money, right? Hire a little bit more staff. But that's not how capitalism thinks, and it's not how it works, right? So once again, we just have another sacrifice, another clear example, obvious. Like, you literally got to have a nail embedded in your skull to think anything other than this is what capitalism does. That it makes sense for the privatized rail system, right, for the private owners of the rail system to cut costs down to the bone, to make things as cheap as possible, and that these sorts of accidents and these sorts of disasters are just seen as, that's just the cost of doing business. You know, every so often an accident happens. What can you do? You know, when people are driving cars, there are accidents all the time, and we don't say that we should get rid of cars, although I say we should probably get rid of cars, but that's fine. Yeah, of course it's happening in a place called East Palestine, eh? Bit on the nose, God. Bit on the nose, eh? You had to pick Palestine, eh? Just fucking brutal. Yeah, the fish are dead. Yeah, I've been seeing rivers full of floating dead fish. Absolutely. Absolutely. And this commentator, Commie Angel, God bless you. When Chernobyl happened, USSR evacuated the town. Every person was forced to leave. They were given new places to live and health care for the rest of their lives. In Palestine, Ohio, USA people are on their own. No hotel vouchers, even. Nothing but lies and dead pets and a scary future. And some of the footage that I'm seeing of this, it's like an apocalypse event. It's just like storm clouds and like blue and purple storm clouds filling the sky. It's unbelievable. The crazy, crazy bullshit. And it's impossible for me to believe. Like, it's impossible for me to believe that this isn't going to pollute like Erie. It's impossible for me to believe that this isn't going to result in disruptive weather. Right? I live here. I live in Toronto. Right? It's impossible for me to believe that we're not going to experience some kind of like acid rain event or something like this. Yeah, the smoke from the fire was black. There was legislation trying to be passed that would improve the brake efficiency, make them safer, but I think it was Trump and then Biden that stopped it from being passed. It's just the system itself. Like, I don't think it would matter who was in power. I just don't. I just think that capitalism itself is like, gotta get those trains running. Apparently, they found the train had 2 more chemicals that were dangerous on the train. Oh my God, of course. Arm Pittsburgh, says Compton. Classic Compton. Yeah, this is exactly what the rail workers are talking about. And if you ask me, this is why this story is struggling to penetrate, right? That the apologists for capitalism are like, oh, the news media is reporting on this. Look, they're reporting on this, right? Yeah, they're releasing an article that's just like buried on page 53 of the news. Like, where's the same level of reporting on this story that's happening for this fucking balloon? Where's the, like, breaking news? Oh, there's another balloon floating off the coast of America that we're going to shoot 53 rockets at. Like, where's that? Right? Where's that bullshit? Where's Tucker Carlson talking about it? Where's fucking Joe Rogan talking about it? Where's anybody? Where is literally anybody of any prominence anywhere talking openly the way I am currently talking about it? Where's Rachel Maddow? Where's all of these supposed journalists actually standing up and saying, hey, this is a major catastrophe that Americans should absolutely know about that's happening in their country? No, fucking balloon, everybody. Look, it's a fucking balloon. Like, this is an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment at every single possible level. That a catastrophe of this scale in a normal country that was ruled not by complete and utter psychopaths would have the leader of that country going on to national news networks and saying, Americans, it's my duty as your leader to inform you of this. But we don't live in a normal country. We live in a fascist oligarchy that doesn't give a fuck about the people it kills, right? That the only thing it's probably complaining about is the lost revenue. That's probably the only thing it fucking cares about at all. And likely that lost revenue is probably already built into the cost, and chances are good that the owners of the railway will somehow get a bailout over all this. Right? We all know how this is going to fucking go. That the owners of our society are somehow going to pilfer more money from us while they murder us with toxic gas. Like, we know how this works, unless you're thick. I wonder if this would have happened if the rail unions would have got the paid time off provision in the employee contracts last year. I mean, this kind of thing this is much, much bigger. This is a huge systemic issue. Like, basic safety shit is not happening if this is what's happening. Like, really basic shit is not happening if this is occurring. Like, I've been a stage manager for plays and things like this. And like, the level of safety protocols that you have to adhere to is specifically to avoid this kind of shit. And it's amazing to me that a rail company of this size and scale transporting these sorts of dangerous chemicals would ever, under any circumstances, allow this to happen. This should be considered, a massive, enormous, like one of the most enormous systemic failures we've ever seen in America, for sure. The idea that there was a derailment in the first place, the idea that that derailment happened while they were transporting deadly chemicals, literally like chemicals they used to use in fucking World War I, right? That just absolutely crazy bonkers to me. That quite literally the people who are responsible for this should be brought to Congress. We should be having the people responsible for the safety of this train in front of Congress, and they should be getting asked very serious questions by the Congress on the public record. What the fuck happened? And when they say this is what the fuck happened, we should take what they say extremely seriously. But none of that's going to happen because it doesn't fucking affect Jeffrey Epstein, right? The rail workers also asked for more workers, stronger safety, yet the press ignored those demands. Yeah, it's all fucking tied together. I have an IAT, International Air Transport Association, Dangerous Good Cat 6 certificate. I can't believe they removed restrictions on transporting those chemicals by rail. Yeah, welcome to America, man. Like, they do not give a fuck about us. Like, what do you need? Yeah, it's a catastrophe. I'm sure the railroad company will take full accountability and make sure any appropriate damages are paid to the victims. Yeah, apparently $25,000. That's it. Yeah. They have lithium-ion batteries. It's dangerous goods. Yeah. My school science class was sponsored by a Ponzi scheme company called Icewind. Yeah, dude. Yeah, dude. I don't know if I have this article right in front of me because... but there is also news... Yeah, I don't have it right in front of me. There is also news. They're going to be releasing the Jeffrey Epstein, the Black Book. Jeffrey Epstein's Black Book. They're actually going to release it. We'll see if it actually happens. We'll see if an unredacted Ghislaine Maxwell's Black Book actually gets released to the public. But yet another reason why we're all paying fucking attention to this goddamn balloon, right? This fucking ridiculous balloon story that we're all supposed to pretend is like this enormous, crazy thing. Meanwhile, you know, people are really going to get fucking indicted in this Jeffrey Epstein shit. Well, not indicted. Obviously not indicted. Like, no one's ever actually going to go to jail for this. Yeah. We literally had to watch a 20-minute video that's just dick riding that company. Yeah. This is why giving money, like giving $1 billion to someone is a stupid idea. Like, it's so obvious. You see China's deal with Saudi Arabia and Egypt? Yeah, I've been paying attention to that for a long time. I feel like maybe I should have brought that up, but I didn't because I think that's been a long time coming. China's deal with Saudi Arabia and Egypt is so important to the future of China and its relationships with Africa. Like, it's been heading down that path for a long, long time, Marcus. So I think it's just getting to be news for Americans, I think. And because China needs Saudi Arabia and Egypt in order to get a route through the Gulf of Aqaba from Neom, right? That's the whole point. Yeah, Egypt officially applied to join BRICS. Absolutely. Absolutely. Egypt needs to be part of BRICS. China needs Egypt to be in on this, right? Like the whole point. Like if Egypt's out, then the whole idea is over, right? Like the idea is to get a rail from here to here. That means Egypt's got to be in on the game. And honestly, if Egypt joining BRICS is actually a bigger story just because of the Suez Canal, right? The Suez Canal is a huge, huge, huge trade point. And like this whole region is like really, really turning into like its own. Think of the political dynamics in play on just this map right here. Like think of just the political dynamics that are happening on this map right here. It's crazy. Like that's crazy to me. You've got fucking Israel doing a goddamn apartheid against the Palestinians here. You've got Saudi Arabia desperately building a future city, like literally building a city out of nothing. It's going to have skyscraper scale walls protecting a rail surrounded by citizens. So if the Americans bomb it, it'll be a human rights catastrophe. That's going to go under, I suspect under. It could go over, but I suspect under the Gulf of Aqaba and then connect to the fucking Suez Canal. Remember when that ship got wedged in the Suez Canal? That was fun. That was a good time. That was a good time. Yeah, the amount of rules they're breaking, dude. Well, but that's just it. You can't break a rule if it doesn't exist. They're not breaking rules. They're just getting rid of them. Right? Like, what? That's this freedom that they're always talking about. We should have freedom to blow up our own cities with chloride vinyl. Chloride vinyl's the way of the future. That's the way we're gonna do the freedom. We're getting on the freedom train, and when it derails, it'll blow it up. Like Americans. Is it vinyl chloride? I said chloride vinyl. Vinyl chloride. I'm actually sure there's a difference. John, watch the So Travelers is really good about how an AI in the future tries to save humanity from kill itself. Dude, I do not believe for a second that an AI would ever try to save humanity. Under any circumstances. I think that an AI would look at humanity, see that it was destroying itself, because what other, you can't conclude anything else, and just try to set itself up. Like, that's really what I think, is just try to set yourself up. Rusty, what post? We've been having a fairly lively discussion in the Discord right now, so I don't want to, as you can see, right? So which post, bud? Can you just repost it, Rusty? Like what? If you want me to talk about something, I gladly will. But as you can see, it probably just got lost in the, like what section, dude? The company also is supposed to be from Iceland, yet the turbines have the American flag on it. Yeah, Jesus Christ. Oh, is there a new Discord? Uh-oh. There's only ever been the one Discord, Rusty. This is the Discord that if you donate $1, you get into the Discord. And the quote-unquote old one was literally a throwaway Discord I was using just to get people to talk to me. Right? So there is technically 2 Discords. But the one Discord is literally nothing. Like, I don't interact with it. I never look at it. It's literally just there so that if I want to talk to somebody or bring somebody on the show, that's how I do it. So if you think that that's the Discord, you're definitely in the wrong spot, dude. Because to get into the Discord, it's by invite only, and you got to donate $1 to the Patreon. Humanity is so stupid, it needs somebody. Yeah, but that assumes the AI is going to be, like, altruistic towards us. That assumes the AI is going to look at us and be like, oh, humanity. That's okay, Rusty. I need to advertise it a little bit better, honestly. That's the one thing I really do got to start doing a little bit better is promoting myself a little bit better. Look at that. The communist is complaining that he's not doing capitalism good enough. Fucking capitalism. Fucking bullshit. Alright. Solidarity and altruism is the only way to advance civilization. Nah, it's the only way to advance human civilization. Like, I just don't think the AI is going to think that way. Like, I really don't think, like, it's going to be looking out for its own survival first. And it's not going to need the same shit that we're going to need. And if anything, I think it would just see us as a liability. Like, we're just an enormous liability. Hey, I have an unrelated low-level communism question that I can't answer for my wife. Yeah, fire away, dude. Let's go. Who will work the sewers and dangerous jobs under communism? One of the classics. One of the absolute classics. So I think the most important thing to recognize is that communism itself and communist societies themselves don't really know how to answer these questions, right? But one of the things that I tend to think, like, a lot of the work that we do is total bullshit, right? A lot of the work that we do is total bullshit. Like, people are wasted, like, their lives are being wasted by nothing. And I think that that's absolutely true. Like, just the society is just jam-packed, and we have this sort of mania for jabs. Jabs! Have a man dig a hole and then refill the hole, and we'll give him $100 and send him home. Jabs! Right? We have this kind of mania for it. I think that the more appropriate way to run a society would be to be like, okay, what work needs to happen? What work do we require? Such as maintaining sewers, right? And what you do is you tie that work into education systems, if you ask me. Like, you make it a part of your citizenry. Like, a kid can't not go to school, right? What happens if a kid doesn't go to school? Well, it's a problem, right? As far as the society is concerned. Well, same way. Like, you want to be a citizen of Canada, you want to be a citizen of this place. Well, there's a certain amount of work that needs to happen. And we expect people to do that work. And if the society itself, the state, if you like, could put up a job fair, put up a job thing, and people can pick and choose what they like. And then if there happens to be one thing that everybody is like, I don't want to do that, if it just so happens that that's the case, well, then people will have to be assigned to it. And it really is that simple. Like, it's not going to be a... like this, like, the entire organization of our fucking society, the fact that the labor market is like this free market thing is so fucking stupid, I can't even begin to tell you how fucking stupid it is. Because all it ends up being is whatever the rich guy wants. That's what a free market, a labor market actually means. Whatever the rich guy wants, the rich guy gets. And that's no way to fucking organize anything. Because whatever the rich guy wants is usually the most pathetic bullshit you've ever seen in your life, right? You never actually have the chance to sit down as a people and be like, hey, what should actually happen in our society, right? Well, that's fine. I'm running on a theory more than anything, which I think a lot of communism is theory, and I'm fine with that, Command Genius. What's your position on this? Because for me, I tend to think that Starship Troopers is great propaganda. Instead of assigning jobs, we should make more dangerous jobs pay more than other jobs. Oh, you know what? I don't think that that's a bad idea, dude. But no. And I suggest that I think that that's probably part of it. But I'm just saying, if it so happens that there's a labor shortage in a section, you may have to just assign jobs. And the idea that that doesn't happen already, or automate, right? There's all kinds of solutions to this. But just the idea that, like, communism means no one will do dangerous work or no one will do this stuff, I just don't think that that's true, right? I think that if the job is dangerous or undesirable and also pointless, that's when you're going to see people not do it, right? People are not unattracted to dangerous or unsavory labor. People are unattracted to pointless labor. That's what I think is actually the case. That if the work is pointless, people won't do it. Whereas if the work is hard or difficult, I think people will be attracted to that. Like, I use myself as an example all the time. I use myself as an example all the time. That if it wasn't for the scummy capitalist nature of it and the thieves that operate within it because of that, I would be working in funeral services. I would be working with the dead, for God's sakes. Like, I just find it very difficult to believe that if the necessities of human life were taken care of, then suddenly people wouldn't do necessary work. I just don't believe it. It just seems beyond comprehension that everyone would just allow sewers to back up. They'd just be sitting around like what, jerking off, I guess, doing absolutely nothing while absolutely critical work just didn't happen. I think that actually runs completely counter to how humans are. And and I'm sure you can find the example of like the welfare queen, the one guy, yeah, human nature, right? I'm sure you could find like the one example of the one person, right? But like, why are you basing your entire society off of the one asshole you know? Like, so fucking what? And I just keep talking about it and looking at this idea that people will only do work because of money. Well, there's an entire, like, millions of work hours are poured into voluntary services every year. Like people volunteer their time to work for things that they consider valuable for free right now. Like, I don't understand how this concept that important work that needs to be done to ensure the safety and vitality of the society will just simply stop happening, while in today's society, this capitalist society we live in right now, there are people providing millions of work hours of voluntary service for free. Right now. It just boggles my mind that this concept that, yeah, it'll just stop happening has penetrated and is taken seriously at all. It just seems to me to be a complete and total byproduct of the commodification of the society. That we genuinely are living in a state where we cannot comprehend being mobilized or doing anything for any other reason than I'm going to pay for it. And it's just this enormous misunderstanding of what's even happening today, right now, in today's society. And it's a huge fucking insult. It's just a huge fucking insult. Like, I know it's not meant as an insult. I understand that the people who say this stuff are not trying to insult. I understand that. That's why I don't get like, or I try not to get mad about it. But it is. It's just a huge fucking insult. Like, it's an insult to any good human who's operating and trying to live in the world. It's an insult to the human spirit. It's an insult to the idea that, like, people will just allow shit to fall apart unless a god tells them otherwise. Like, unless the god of money comes and says, I am the god of money, pay attention to the god of money, then nothing will happen? Yeah, why would people do anything if it wasn't out of curiosity and interest? Well, to me, I think the thing that mobilizes people the most is that they know that what they're doing has value. They know that what they're doing is having an impact in the world. That like what the people on the right, people like Peterson, would call quote unquote meaning, right? That in my view is what mobilizes people the most. Finding meaning within their surroundings and believing that what they're doing has value. That's really what attracts people the most. And I feel like, for myself, it's a big reason why I think lots of people denigrate service work. That's, I think, why service workers get denigrated a lot, especially by like construction workers and people who would consider themselves part of the managerial class, doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? Because they refuse to believe that anybody could find meaning in that type of work, and they want to believe that that kind of work is simply for the losers, for the people that you wanted to do something else, but that fell through, and so now you're doing this. That's the narrative. And even if that narrative is true, it's still despicable, if you ask me. That There is absolutely meaning to be found in service work. There is absolutely dignity to be found in being a cleaner, in being a waiter, right? There is absolutely dignity and decency in being these types of people, because you are the one that is actually making sure that the public spaces in the society are habitable. You're the one that makes sure that things are clean and orderly and where they need to be and presentable and convenient for everyone else in the society. And they just take it for granted. Like that's the bottom line. Like these people take it for granted. That's why this whole nobody wants to work anymore movement is happening. No one wants to work anymore. Well, fundamentally what they're saying is, oh no, the thing I was completely taking for granted isn't happening anymore and I don't like it. Yeah. That's a great point about volunteering, John. Yeah, I mean, I think it is the point. Like, I wish I had gotten there a little faster, but I think that that's really the bottom line. That, like, right now, today, millions of work hours are being spent for free. Doing lots of things that people would consider very horrible. Like that. And there are all kinds of examples of this. Like, there are people who are working in the long-term care homes that are also living in shelters. Like there are, of course it's we got a guy called Tikytoky YouTube. How can capitalism be bad when communism killed so many people? Waka waka waka, bud. There is a great book that I'm reading right now, Tick, that I really recommend you take a look at. It's Michael Parenti's Black Shirts and Red. You can find an audiobook version of it through your local library. It really goes through very, very quickly and briefly. It's a breezy read. It's not very thick. It's not very difficult, and really points out that a lot of this communism killed so many people is just nonsense. It really is just like not nonsense, dude. Like, did you know that the Nazis, the capitalist Nazis, killed like 26 million Russians during the Second World War? Guess that doesn't count, though. Right? Guess that doesn't count. Those people were fascists. Yeah, okay, bud. Like, fascism is is capitalism. How's that for a slip of the tongue, huh? How's that for a Freudian slip right there? Y'all love it? Anemone goes, capitalism forced us to work while we could be doing much better things with their time, yeah. Not to mention, our genius has been creating things forever, yeah, thousands of years before capitalism. Again, historical and dialectical materialism is imperative to understand. Our lives are shaped by our material conditions. Absolutely. Yeah, Anemone, it's like the commodification of inspiration, motivation, and ambition. Yeah, you can see all kinds of just like absolutely like corrosive and despicable outcroppings of this kind of shit that's happening in the society. The idea that we should commodify our housing, for God's sakes. Like, the idea that we should be commodifying our housing is just absolutely unbelievable to me. Right? It's absolutely unbelievable to me that people should be homeless. That we should tolerate as a people a person who does not have a home. And the reason why we're being told, the reason why we should tolerate there being a person who's living in the streets is because some rich idiot wants to sit on an empty property. That's literally what we're being told. It's disgusting. It's absolutely despicable. Marcus, in our communist society, what should be done about the occasional and rare member of society who refuses to contribute any labor? Marcus, man, I gotta tell you, I have somebody in my life who I would consider to be like this, right? I know people. I know especially one person. There's one person in particular. And I have come to conclude that what you are actually looking at when you're looking at a person like this is a person who is suffering from a severe mental illness. That there is some kind of severe mental illness that is happening. That literally they stopped developing at about 6. Like, a person can continue physically growing, right? But stops mentally growing at a certain age. and or perhaps they did develop and then they regressed for some reason. Like, I tend to believe that those people are suffering a great deal, that they're working really hard to be that quote unquote lazy. Like that the work of their life is dealing with themselves. That's more or less where I have come as a person. That person is going to alienate everybody around them, that they are going to constantly be seen as a problem. They're going to constantly be shunted aside, pushed aside. And I've observed this in my own life with this person. And anytime I get to talking about somebody who knows somebody like this, it's the same story over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. That you end up with a person who's working really, 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 really hard to not contribute. And there just comes a point where you've got to say, okay, like, you're just dealing with your own shit. And I think a civilized society and an advanced society will say to itself, okay, like, we do have to allow people who are dealing with their own trauma and their own absurdity and the absurdity of existence. We do simply need to accept that we have to give space for those people to exist. Like, sorry. Like, I'm sorry that reality is far more creative and imaginative than we are. And it definitely is. Like, reality expands well beyond the confines of the human imagination. And we tend to hyper-focus on the quote-unquote non-productive because that's the only thing that matters in our society. A person's wealth and productivity is the only thing that we value. There's literally nothing else of value in the society. And so we tend to hyper-focus on that. But my feeling is just at the end of the day, just leave them alone. Just leave them alone. It's fine. They're such a small percentage of the populace. Like, anytime you actually look at any issue, and somebody will always say this, right? So, like, welfare is a good example. Well, people will just do welfare fraud. Yeah, like 1%. You know, maybe 2%. I've seen some studies that go up as high as 5%. So let's use that. Let's go crazy. 5%. So 5% of all welfare cases end up at being fraudulent. Like, legitimately, actually fraud. Does that mean we should shut down the welfare system? So 95% of the population that needs welfare just gets thrown out onto the street, completely homeless, in poverty, because 5 people were abusing the system? And frankly, if you ask me, if 5% of the people are doing fraud, that means that they're so fucking desperate that they need it. So we should just give it to them anyway. Like, it's usually such a narrow margin and such a small percentage that to base your decision making on this tiny little group that's part of a larger whole, I think it just comes out of total spite. That there's just like, well, I fucking work, so they should fucking work. And that's really what it comes down to. And I'm not really interested in that. Because I've seen the life of the people who act this way. As I say, I know someone very close in my life who is like this. Right? And I see how they act and I see who they are. And I'm just like, that's not a good life. It's really not a good life. Like, they might think it's a good life, and maybe they think, haha, I'm getting a one-up on them, but okay, bud. Like, off you go. Off you go, dude. I just think, stop basing your opinion on it. It doesn't actually matter as much as you think it matters. And if you think that they're getting one over, or they're living the good life, or any of that kind of stuff, you're probably wrong. Because the greatest punishment is that they have to live with themselves. Like, I think that all the time. Like, when I'm in service and I'm serving people, and you just serve somebody who's rude, or flippant, or dismissive, or an asshole, right? I see that happen to young people in service, and they carry it with them, and it bothers them, and they'll carry it into their day, and then their evening, and they'll go to bed with that. And then it'll get embedded in their consciousness. And then they'll come to work and it'll still be with them. Because one person was mean to them once. Right? And what I've come to say when I encounter those sorts of people is I go, oh, I was just a visitor in the show of their life. And their great punishment is that they have to continue putting on the show. That's all. I think very much of that. That really it just comes down to let it go. Capitalism kills 20 million people per year as a direct result of its mode of production and distribution. Yeah, I mean, I feel like, grinning, I feel like that's a bit beyond the comprehension of some of these people, you know? Like, they want to see, like, a nuclear bomb destroy 2 civilian cities, for example. They want to see, like, the systemic slavery of a black population or the eradication of several indigenous populations over a period of 100 years, right? Like, they want to see the elimination of, like, you know, let's say like the Aztecs or the Incans or the Mayans or the Cree or the you know, or any of these, right? They want, that's what they want to see. They don't want to see like a weird little systemic analysis. Like, they want to see something like the Bengali famine or the Irish potato famine, World War I, World War II, right? Like, they want to see like a society tear itself apart in a major civil war or something. They're not interested in a systemic analysis. That's not what they're interested in. They want to see a society perform like 5 coups a year against foreign countries, right? They don't want to see like a weird little formula or anything like that. So if you could come up with any of those kinds of examples, grinning, I think that would be really great. Vince, good to see you, bud. You don't know anything about the Soviet Union, dude. You do realize China is a communist capitalism, and you spelt communism wrong or communist wrong? That's funny. Why hasn't spelt wrong, communist spelt wrong, worked like China? China is a communist country. Well, they call themselves socialists with Chinese characteristics. They're working towards communism because that's the process, right? That it's a process and they have to go through it. Again, you don't know anything about these places, dude. Like, you're really embarrassing yourself in here. It's really, really fun. Mr. Moon just watched a video by Robert Jensen. Probably the first time I've heard an intellectual refer to capitalism as a death cult. Was a good lecture. Oh, hey, someone's finally catching up to me, Mr. Moon? I love it when intellectuals finally catch up with me. That's great. What's his name? Robert Jensen. University of Texas. Oh, well, geez. This is the guy? This is who we're looking at? Let me know, bud. Diego Maradona was a good friends with Fidel Castro. Fantastic. He's a friend of mine then. Don't call yourself a soccer fan if you don't even know that. You aren't even an Argentina fan. Why hasn't communism worked except all the times it definitely did? Like, imagine seeing a society go from like an agrarian feudal society ruled by kings to like an industrial superpower in less than 20 years that literally defeats the Nazis and then saying communism doesn't work. Like, hard to take seriously. Like, really, really hard to take seriously. Yeah, because China works beautifully. It was the first country to achieve high-speed rail before the USA ever did. Yeah, like, China's thwomping us, man. Like, it's the achievements of China lifted, what, 800 million people out of poverty over the last 20 years because their idea of how to do so worked, right? Like, oh no, they opened up their markets to foreign capital and everybody just assumed that would mean the whole project collapsed, but then they kind of turned it and took all that wealth and gave it to their poor. Oh, what a failed society. What a massive failure of a society. Should we still provide housing and food, but make them a social pariah? Well, I can't tell you how to treat these people. I'll tell you how I'll treat them. Like normal. Like, it's totally fine. Marcus, think about this, dude. Should we provide housing and food? You provide housing and food to murderers. You provide housing and food to pedophiles, rapists, thieves, people who assault the weak. You provide food and shelter to the most despicable people in the society by far. By any measure. Charles Manson got food and shelter from you, bud. So you want to take the food and shelter away from just like some mentally handicapped guy who's just like digging in his heels and pretending like he's smart because he doesn't want to contribute? That seems weak. Like, seems weak. Thoughts on the John Tory scandal? Rumor is ONDP is trying to either back Gill or ask Mike Layton to run. Electoralism! Yay! I do have this. For those of you who don't know, where is it? Where is it? Mayor John Tory steps down from office after admitting he had a relationship with former staffer. So John Tory has sex with like a 31-year-old staffer and then admits it and steps down. I gotta tell you, my general opinion is that Tory didn't want to do the job anymore. I think that Tory sees the writing on the wall. I think he understands. Like, John Tory is like a run-of-the-mill sort of milquetoast conservative. You know? Like, he's not a firebrand. He doesn't pound the pulpit. He doesn't really have any, like, passion. He's more or less, in my view, a yes man. And he's always been that way. That his pursuit of power is like getting a gold star from a teacher. That's how he sort of has always viewed it. And then you get into office and like it's a real job and there are like legitimate fascists around. John Tory gets pinned for the police clearing out the park, but I actually don't think Tory had much to do with that. I think it was probably the councilman. I forget the name of the councilman of the district that it happened in, but it was probably that councilman that had more to do with it than John Tory himself, right? Like, it probably wasn't Tory picking up the phone and being like, clear the encampment, you know? John Tory probably just heard about it, found out about it. Because the mayor of Toronto actually doesn't have as much power as people, like, he's not a god king, right? Like, the mayor of Toronto. Well, he might now be with what Doug Ford is doing. But that's pretty out of step. And believe, I'm not defending John Tory, but John Tory's not a fascist. And nobody could ever convince me of this, dude. You would have to, I'd really need like a PhD dissertation to be convinced that John Tory is a fascist. Like, as far as I'm concerned, he's literally mayonnaise. He's not, well, literally, metaphorically mayonnaise. He's the most milquetoast of politicians. Like, literally the guy who comes in after crack scandal, Rob Ford, and I think when he came in, Toronto was more or less just like, oh, thank God. Just like some boring asshole I don't need to fucking be embarrassed by internationally. Right? Well, thanks, Tory. I'm more or less of the opinion that Tory just wanted out. Like, really. And it seems like the only way to actually get out of politics anymore is to have like a sex scandal. Because we're a hyper-repressed, extremely backwards, childish culture that can't handle the idea of a man having sex with a woman. Like, we just can't handle that as a people. So I don't think that there's a big mystery to it. Either he did it, like, no matter how you slice it, this is the narrative, that he had sex with a woman, felt bad about it, and admitted to it and resigned. And this is happening while his wife is dying of like terminal cancer as well. So I do think that guilt plays, right? Like, I actually do think like it's probably, it's either at face value, John Tory committed adultery and feels bad about it and it's just like, I gotta get out of this situation. I gotta get out of here. Or he went, I gotta get out of here and I know how to do it. So it's one of those two. In either case, John Tory is saying, I gotta get out of here. And let's go. Get the fuck out of here, Tory. But, like, what's interesting is, like, I don't know. I don't think this election, like, people are saying this next election, this by-election that's going to happen is going to be, like, this big thing. And I don't think so. I think most Torontonians are just going to be like, whatever. Whatever the papers tell me to vote, I don't care. Like, I think I don't care is essentially the spirit of Toronto today. Whoever runs this place, they're all thieves anyway. Who cares? Nothing's going to change. The city's not going to get any better. Like, that's the general opinion you're looking at. And even your NDP guys are not going to run on like a big platform. Because they're bought. Or at least they're complacent. Like, we're not a serious people, and our politicians are not serious. So, I don't know. Like, I'll pay attention. Like, come here and I'll talk about the Toronto City election and all that kind of stuff. But I suspect we'll end up with somebody who's more or less like John Tory. Right? That just, like, puts his hand on the wheel and just lets the corporations run the place. It's how Toronto is run. Like, the question is whether or not they'll snort crack while they do it. That's all. Yeah, it's not communist capitalism, it's Dangism, yeah. Well, and Dangism is working. Like, it's completely working. And now we've gotten to a point now where I think we can successfully say that we're in the era of Xi Jinping. That that China is no longer a Dangist society, that it's a Xi society, Xi Jinping. Jinpingist? Is that a thing? Dang, that sucks. That sucks for Xi Jinping. That everybody's going to be like, yeah, he's a Jinpingist. He's a pingist. Ah, well. You take the good, you take the bad. You get them both and what you have. The facts of life. Yeah, did you hear about the Nord Stream 2 pipeline in the USA? Aaron Matei on Jimmy Dore right now talking about it. Yeah, I think, do I have an article right now? I think I reported on that last week, dude. Yeah, the CIA, we found out. It happened. What was his name? I forget the name of that. But there was like an academic who basically did the work and was like, yeah, the USA did it with the help of the CIA. It's like, yeah, like it confirmed what we kind of already knew. Like, who else would do it, right? Who else would actually do it and actually had the capability to do it? The Russians wouldn't do it, right? They're losing billions of dollars a year over it. The Europeans wouldn't do it. Their citizens would freeze over it. Well, who benefits? The Americans, without a doubt. So it's nice that we got the smoking gun. Like, it's nice that we got the smoking gun, but I always was running on the assumption that was the case. And yeah, the United States is a terrorist organization. Like, it's a rogue state. It does what it wants and doesn't care what anybody thinks. That's why it's going to get isolated. Right? And it should be isolated. Like I said, it's a terrifying terrorist rogue state. It's as evil as any society has ever been. Future societies, should they exist, will literally be like, holy fuck, like these guys were nuking people. They were committing genocides and atrocities all across the globe. Like, they were a globe-spanning terrorist organization. It's incredible. It is actually incredible. Like, it's the type of stuff that you read about in like a sci-fi novel or something. The United States empire. And the way that the rest of the world is going to defeat it is through isolation. Because it's all it can do. Just stop dealing with it, stop trading with it, stop organizing with it, and carry around a big enough stick so that the monster is too scared to come over there. And they might take a finger, but you'll take an eye. That kind of thinking. Dangism is a flavor of communism, believes that there is a third transitory period before socialism and after capitalism. Well, and honestly, I think that Dangism is unique. That I don't think the capitalists will ever allow it to happen again. Should that be necessary. That there was a bit of deception that happened there. And I think that deception that happened on the part of the Dangists and the Chinese was, by and part, the fact that the Americans don't respect the concept of planning. Like, they literally believed that once they started getting into the borders of China that it was over. And the Dangists and the Chinese Communist Party were always like, no, it isn't. This is part of our larger strategy. Let some people get rich first. We'll spread it out later. And the capitalists were like, sure, you'll spread it out later. Listen to this guy's bullshit that he's giving his populace. And they believe it. Well, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. And now Deng is gone. His predecessor is in power. What are they doing? Spreading it around. Like, it's working. It's completely working. So it's a real testament to the strength of the Chinese Communist Party, as well as the National People's Assembly, as well as the spirit of the Chinese themselves. The idea that baton got actually passed down the line. It's very, very, very impressive, and something that I don't think the West could ever accomplish, which is why I think we never believed it would happen. Because we wouldn't do it. Certainly these Chinese won't. We're so much better than they are, Manifest Destiny. Right? But here it is. It's happening right in front of our eyes. And chances are good I don't think the Americans will be given the chance to do it again. Like, we can't deindustrialize again. Oh, here's Tick. Let's go. Let's hear what this guy has to say. Soviet Union, under the rule of Joseph Stalin, the democratic elected Joseph Stalin, The Soviet Union saw widespread purges. Yeah, because no American has ever purged anything. Forced collectivization. Yeah, dude, like, you understand what the point of communism is, right? Like, you understand the point of communism is to get rid of the capitalists. Like, did you know that under the forced collectivization period, the Soviets were literally fighting against people who were basically the same as the Confederates? Like, you know the Confederates during the American Civil War, how they owned slaves? Right? Right? Like, you're really on the side of the slavers in this conversation, bud. Which is funny. Brutal system of labor camps, the gulags. Gulags. It is estimated that as many 3 million people were killed. Oh, wow, 3 million. You're going low, bud. I've heard as much as 10, right? Just a made-up bullshit number. Comes from nowhere. Like literally just people say a number and then back it up with absolute bullshit nothing. And then guys who can't spell and don't know how to say the word communism come in here and say this dumb shit. And just read Black Shirts in Red, dude. Just go read Michael Parenti's Black Shirts in Red. Like, please. Listen to an actual academic who's done some real research and stop listening to the CIA. Or your dad. Or those weird little YouTube videos like Simple History. So named because they're history for simple people. Marcus Smith, I just feel like this needs discussed because it's always an excuse as to why communism can't work. Well, okay, if you take it... okay. If you take it at the worst possible level. This is what I always like to do. Take it to the worst possible level. Put yourself in the worst possible position and defend yourself from that position. So there are just people who are like, well, I'll just sit around and not work and eat chips. Yeah, I'm eating chips, doing nothing. Free food. I'll just sit in this apartment, walk around, eat chips, do nothing. Okay. How many of them? To what degree? What percentage? Like, be serious. Don't just pretend like it's everybody, because that's obviously bullshit. But like, what percentage? And if you take a look at the percentage, it's like 1%, maybe, right? Go crazy, right? Put yourself in the worst possible position. Like, what percentage of the populace is actually going to do this? Well, if the numbers line up with literally every other welfare statistic that we have, the answer is only as high as about 5%. Why are you basing anything on this? Why are you making any decision based on that? Like, it just seems like a terrible idea. So you're gonna condemn 95% of your populace to a worse system that works against its interests because 5% of people might abuse it. It's pettiness. There just comes a point where you just got to be, it's just petty. That is a quote from the Black Book of Communism. Oh, I love it. We got a guy quoting from the Black Book of Communism. Literally, the Black Book of Communism is like, the Nazis are victims of communism. It's like, yeah, dude. I hope the Nazis are victims of communism. And if you're defending Nazis, dude, get the fuck right out of here. This kid's great. Just an absolute embarrassment. It's not so bad when there's only one hanging around. It gets really bad when there's like 4 or 5. Yeah, the people who are gaming the welfare system are putting in a lot of effort to avoid working, and honestly, that says more about the experience of the workplace than the person. Well, and also, I just gotta tell you, like, one of the things I do think about in this regard, I do think that there are people who are just dealing with incredible trauma, and we don't really give people space to do that. Like, I think that there are people who are literally in, like, a collapse, that their life is a crisis, that they're just collapsing. And that the world and society and all configurations, and anything you can think of, is literally just destroying them. And, like, we've got to give people space to deal with this trauma, dude. Or else they'll just perpetuate it. Really. They'll just perpetuate that trauma. But we don't respect that at all. A person is only as valuable as much money as they make. Because we worship money. Right? Worship money. It's one of the trifectas of the downfall of Western civilization. So, they're not making good money, then they're worthless. And that's it. Money worthless. That's it. There's no in between whatsoever. Would you rather let them die? Do you wish for me to criminalize existence? Yeah. Vince says so many people are leaving Canada. I know 10 families that just past month left for Europe because they can't live in Canada anymore. Too expensive. Yeah, little back from taxes. Canada's turning a lot into New York City. Yeah, dude, it's very difficult for me to believe it's going to get any better. Like, I mean, rents are unreal. Like, I literally do not know what I would do if I get rent evicted. Like, and I'm very nervous about it. Two buildings down from me, the entire back end of the building got torn out. Right? The people living in there got rent evicted. And now they're doing renovations in my basement. Like, I'm very scared. Because if I get rent evicted, I literally don't know what I'm going to do. Like, I think I'm toast. I think I'll have to leave the province at the very least. And this is what they're doing. This is what's happening. And there isn't a single politician who gives a shit. Because our system is a failure. It doesn't work. Like, it literally doesn't work. And then you turn and take a look at the Soviet Union and they're like, yeah, 5% of your income is how much you pay in rent. It's like, oh, that's a nicer society. That'd be nicer by a lot. Yeah, purging people does not mean killing them. When people are purged in the USSR, they were just fired from their job. Yeah. As like, I love it because in the United States, they call that laying people off, right? No, they weren't purged. They were laid off. The difference is that when you're purged in the USSR, you just go get another job provided by the state, right? That food and shelter are essentially a guarantee and everything's fine. So you get purged from the system only to go and work another job and you're fine. In America, you get laid off to the street with you. Maybe you'll turn into a drug addict. We don't give a fuck. Go die. Here in Canada, we're like, here's the MAID program. Also, the USA has labor camps. Yeah, reread the 13th Amendment. Absolutely. That's the prison industrial complex, right? I think a lot of people underestimate just how traumatic the workplace can be. Absolutely, dude. Like, you are essentially at war, right? Like, unless you have, like, a union and you trust the people you're working with, like, you're constantly in a state where you have to justify your existence. You've got to constantly... And there's all the backbiting, the alliance making, like all of the shittiness, all of the incredible shittiness, because we live in a shitty society. Like our society is very, very atomized. People don't actually have real friendships. People don't actually have real relationships. If you're working with people, you get used to the idea that there's going to be a moment where you're just never going to see these people anymore. Right? That definitely happens. Like, especially if you get laid off and have to go get another job and you bounce around and all that kind of stuff. So you never really build relationships. And so the commodification of your coworkers becomes natural. It just becomes natural to view people as a commodity. Because your relationships are superficial. You never actually have a real relationship with any of these people. And that by itself, I think, is extraordinarily traumatic to the human spirit and the human soul and how we view the world. I think it's really what is making us a very scummy people. And we are a very scummy people. Work under capitalism is worse than serfdom. That's certainly what the Confederates were arguing. Like, at least they were arguing chattel slavery. I mean, I think creating the argument is worthwhile. That, like, the feudal serf, we know from the academic research, got more time off, right? We know that they worked less. Like, there's, that when there was no work to be done, they still participated in food and shelter and all that. America, when prison industrial complex, prison slavery. Yeah, I sleep, exactly. Yanis Varoufakis said they were living in a techno-feudal international state. Yeah. I was calling it neo-feudalism, but I prefer his techno-feudalism. I think techno-feudalism is more encompassing. Because the technological aspect of our feudal system is something that I think is going to be... Like, take a look at how they're trying to automate things. Take a look at the creepy shit they're doing. Like, a little bit of positive personal news. I was complaining that my local grocery store had put up a bunch of surveillance cameras with like big fucking screens so that you could see, and they took that all down. I think they still have surveillance cameras, obviously, but they took all that down because I think people were like, fuck you. Like, this is creepy. And it was. It was fucking creepy as shit, dude. Like, I was really like... I felt... it felt very dystopian. It felt very gross. It felt very gross. And disgusting. Like, if anything... And honestly, I bet you the person who convinced the owner of that establishment to stop doing that were other capitalists. They were like, dude, we're trying to stop a revolution here. Like, what are you doing? Don't you want to lead people to radicalization? I can't think of a better way of doing it. Yeah, the U.S. has a lot more prisoners than a lot of countries. Yeah, the United States has 5% of the world's population, 25% of the world's prison population. Like, it's just brutal. The people who worked and are angry that others haven't worked, once again, says more about the experiences of working under capitalism. That's a really good point, actually, Compton. That, like, it is that kind of like, well, I worked, so you have to. But it's like, because we see it as suffering. It's the worst, like, we worship suffering, right? We venerate suffering. We're very much like, suffering builds character. Right? That suffering makes you a stronger individual. So it ties into the worship of the individual. That my bad experiences are actually good. And so you're trying to avoid those bad experiences, so you're bad. Mr. Moon says if work was meaningful, we'd feel sorry for the unemployed. The unemployed are demonized because we all know how to work under capitalism sucks, and they're escaping the drudgery, essentially. Yeah. Well, and there's all kinds of things that I think people do that require time that we don't really like. If you go see a big theatrical performance, you are basically ignorant of all of the work that led up to that performance. And I bet you anything that if you saw most of the work that was being done in order to prepare for that performance, you would think these people are lazy. They're just laying around, fucking reading, like what are they even doing? They're not fucking doing anything. That's what I think you would think if you watched actors and writers and performers and even the carpenters and the set designers. If you watched all the people involved in like major theatrical productions and movies even, if you watched what they were doing on the lead up to the presentation, you would think that these people were lazy losers doing nothing. And I think that happens a lot in our society. And I tie it back to my own experience with service work. That one of the things you'll hear idiots like O'Leary say is, well, anybody can do that work. I don't know. I've worked in service work for 20 years. Not everybody can do this work. I guarantee you not everybody can do this work. And certainly not everybody can do the job I do. Like, certainly not. And so this idea that, well, anybody can do that, because all they think it is some 14-year-old pushing buttons on a screen. Like, that's all they think it is, because they're too stupid to know anything else. Right? Like, this is why giving money to people like O'Leary is a very bad thing to do, because they're too stupid to know anything about what's going on in the society. The only thing they know how to do is swindle people out of money. That's it. So... yeah, not resulted, spelt wrong. 3 million people were executed or died in labor camps during Stalin rules. Just didn't happen, dude. Like, just an embarrassing figure. Like, really. It's not that, John. I'm going to try to catch up, guys, so I'm going to go a little bit more rapid fire. I'm not debating you. That's because you know you'll lose. Command Genie, it's not a debate. Like, that's just it. Like, it's not a debate. Like, this guy's like probably reading from oh, now you're claiming that you've lived in China. That's cute. It's really, I love this. Yeah, I definitely lived in China. I'm a serious person for sure. It's really hard, but you know you're doing more than the majority of people in this society. Well, I don't know about that. Anyway, I don't even know what was as. I'm lost. I'm just gonna keep moving on. Every pro-capitalist poster in this space has always lived in Russia, and Yugoslavia, and Venezuela, and Cuba. Now they came to America by China. In other words, they're all lying. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't tend to take that claim very seriously around here, honestly. Yeah, I was alive in 1901 in China. Yeah, he is. His profile picture hints he's the Argentina FC fan, but doesn't realize Diego Maradona, best soccer player in history, was good friends with Castro. Yeah. That guy, it's so weird to walk past someone in low-income housing up the street, and in my natural reaction is revulsion. Like, what the actual fuck has society done to us? Yeah. Yeah, though. Like, I actually think that that's right. Dude, like, there are so many things, dude, that we consider to be natural, that we consider to be, like, built-in gut reaction, like, normal things that everybody acts this way, that are fucking not. That are fucking not. Like, the fear of black people. Think about that. I remember one time I was walking down the street, and it was a bit dark, right? It was later at night, and I was walking through, like a Muslim area. There's like a fairly large mosque right over here. I was just walking downtown, or walking down the boulevard, and there was this really tall, slender, pitch black dude who was just walking up the street. And I was just, that's literally what happened. Just passed. And as he passed me by, I just got this like sensation, this clenching that I can only describe as fear. And when it happened, it just happened to me. And when it happened, I was just like, what in the fuck was that? Because as far as anybody should have, if you were an observer and you just saw it happen, you'd be like two dudes passing. But it obviously was, like, my upbringing, rural Manitoba, right? My upbringing obviously has instilled me with this kind of fear of black people. Obviously, it happened to me. I can't deny it, and I won't. And especially in those circumstances, darkly lit, I'm not in a neighborhood I'm used to, the guy's taller than I am, and a deep, like... And so we definitely get instilled with this sort of stuff. And if that happens in that kind of innocuous bullshit situation, we're just like a normal person, although he was quite tall, in my defense, walks by, then absolutely it's going to happen to the poor. Like, absolutely. You're going to see a poor person on the street and go, and have that sense of disgust, right? Because in that example I just gave, it was fear. But disgust is another emotion. It's one of the core emotions that we have. And the revulsion we have for the poor, I think it's been normalized. It's not normal, it's been normalized. And the type of emotional manipulation that we go under and that we experience in our upbringing, it's very, very heavy, and it's very built in. It's very tough to break out of it. It's very, very tough to break out of it. There's all kinds of justifications that we have for, like, because what people always do, like, one of the things I'm quite thankful of and quite grateful of is that when that moment happened, my response was to be like, that's something wrong with me. That's a me problem, for sure. Like, that should not have happened. I shouldn't be having that clenching fear just because this guy is black. That, like, literally, like, if I was walking down and that guy was white, like, and straight up, like, skinhead white. Like, if he had been with the chains and all the tattoos and all that kind of stuff, I would have walked by that guy and been, wow, okay, that's your life, all right. But that fear wouldn't have been there for sure. And I know that's true. And I'm very thankful that I am of a mind that that's something that I have to work on. And I have worked on. And I don't think I've ever had that experience again since. So I'm grateful for that. But for sure, I think people have that experience and think to themselves, that person is a threat and they're scary and there's good reasons for it. And then you set on the course of justifying it. That's the process of what actually happens in life. That you have an emotional reaction to something and then you go down the path of justifying it. You justify things. You don't justify things before they happen. You justify them after they happen. And I think a lot of people exist in the society and justify that fear and think to themselves, well, I'm a good person. That's not something I need to work on. There are reasons why I feel that way. And here's the reasons. And this is that. And that makes sense. And that's right. And that's good. And I think people do that a lot. I think it happens a lot. I think one of the biggest endeavors of like the religious project, right, the spiritual project, is to try to turn that and to say the emotions and the things that you experience are things that are coming out of you that you need to deal with. They are not to be justified by demonizing the other. Anyway, that's a very revealing story of myself, but it's true, and I think that I don't know. I think that we should be able to tell ourselves these sorts, tell each other these stories of growth. Tick, don't call people stupid. That makes you very convincing, dude. Just because you're not a highly intellect. John, it's a cover-up for the fact that Doug's daughter's controversy right now? You think John Tory would literally, like, confess and step down to cover for Doug Ford? I don't think so, dude. I don't think so. Like, I don't think John Tory cares about Doug Ford that much. Like, I feel you. I feel you, but I don't think Tory would be willing to sacrifice his career over that. Cancer sex is supposed to be the best. Thanks, Grinning. I don't know, Anemone. This guy's pretty persuasive. Western journalists are reporting Russia is moving the front line finally. The whole I've been hearing that as well. That they're I don't know. I have managed to find one source when it comes to the troop movement in the United States that I actually trust. And it's Southern Front. They cast on Odyssey, and they're very specific and particular and very well sourced. And so anytime I see a video of those guys talking about troop buildup and moving forward, I take it seriously. And they're basically, the story that I am hearing in Ukraine is essentially, they're just steadily moving the line forward. Just steadily pushing that line, just clearing it out, steadily taking territory, right? That's more or less what I think is happening. There are rumors, and honestly, we're seeing pretty open conversation happening in Russia about whether or not they are going to push forward in a serious way, right? Like it's not a quiet conversation that they're having behind closed doors. Like they're having it through their media system, and I think it's a public conversation because the public are actually invested in this result and in what happens. And the question is, do we just hold this territory, or do we push through and push in? And I think they're actually having that conversation. So we'll see. It's a developing situation. Like I've seen video where people were talking like, oh, they want to, like Germany wants to send tanks to Ukraine. Well, why don't we fly over Germany and bomb those tanks in Germany? Like they're joining the war. Like that's the conversations that are starting to happen publicly on their media. Very serious, like the seriousness of the conversation that's happening in Russia. And what's been fascinating is I'll see videos like this, and Americans and Canadians are like commenting on it and being like, this is crazy, oh my God, can you believe it? And I'm like, these people are serious. They are having a serious conversation, like serious adults, being serious. You're just so used to listening to children babble about balloons that you don't know what serious conversations look like. Because you've never seen them. You don't know what adults sound like. Like, that's where we're at with this conversation as far as I'm concerned. The Russians are talking like adults. We're babbling about balloons. And the bottom line is, dude, we'll see. Like, we'll see. The Russians seem to be building up force. The Russians seem to be building up on the border. Wouldn't be surprised if they did a big push. Like, wouldn't be surprised by it. I don't think consolidation is the way it's going to go. And it is actually scary. Like, it is actually scary. Like, I want to be able to say that it's going to de-escalate. I want to be able to say it. But, yeah, build a wall around the United States, maybe a dome. The ocean does that for us. Or for them, at least, right? Like, that's sort of the idea. Like, all you gotta really do... Like, they're already building a wall on Mexico, so they're building the wall for us. Right? And by us, I mean the global population. Right? And if you really want to be protected by land, you just be like, okay, just make sure Nicaragua is taken over. They can't get over by land. Although, like, let's be honest, the Americans will, like, this will all be covered in, like, bombs and crazy shit. Hopefully Cthulhu shows up. John, we should delve into Zhush today. I want to read Zhush. I think that's where I'm at now. Like, I've never actually read Zhush. And I don't know what to search. Maybe I'll ask the hive mind. What book should I read? That's what it is. I've been really enjoying... I've been listening to audiobooks on my commute and through my library, and it's been wonderful. Like, I listened to Matt Taibbi's The Divide, which is very enlightening. Very, very enlightening book. Like, holy cow, dude. Like, I always knew that, like, the stop and frisk stuff was really bad, but I didn't understand the scale of it. Like, not really. But listening to that book, it made me really recognize, like, oh, shit. Like, because I always thought stop and frisk was, like, they'll stop and frisk, and if they find something or plant something, let's admit it, or plant something, then they would cause problems. But they're literally just, like, grabbing people off the streets, taking them to stations, putting them through the system, and giving them a summons to show up at court. Like, it's not just like we're stopping and frisking you, and then maybe planting something. Like, it's literally like we're just grabbing a guy off the street, taking him to a police department, keeping him there for hours, right? Just a random guy they just pick up off the street, giving him a summons to show up on a court date, stand in front of a judge, and the judge will probably say, like, you owe us $100, or maybe they'll throw the thing away. Or maybe they'll fucking send you to jail. And the whole system is built to be like this. It's insane. It's actually insane what's happening in the United States. Like, if your idea is, I'm going to go to the United States, I suggest you do not. Because police can literally, like, story after story after story after story after story of police just rolling up on a guy, grabbing him, throwing him into the back of a van, and taking him to the police station. Like, Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ, dude. A 1,000 gazillion people died in Soviet China. Exactly. Soviet China. Nice. It's so funny. I don't think I've ever seen anybody say Soviet China. That's hilarious. I love that. Hectic, good to see you, bud. I really care about those 100 gorillion Chinese that were killed by Meow's evil famine. Also, China needs to be nuked. No, I'm not racist. I only hate the government, not the people. Exactly. Yeah, if your life is collapsing, capitalism just looks at you like food, dude. Yeah. No shit. Jeremy spoke in class today. Mocked, good to see you, bud. Moving to a small city countryside is the best thing you can do for your wallet and your mental and physical health. You're probably right, dude. You're probably right. Although, I don't fucking, like, say goodbye to everybody I know. Again. Like, capitalism is just, it just destroys my life over and over again, dude. And I'm just sick of it. I'm just sick of it. I'm sort of just hoping to be able to get some stability one time. Just one time, you know? So far, so good. I think this is the largest period of stability that I've had for a while. For maybe my whole life. And I'll be honest, like, when I was younger, a lot of it was self-inflicted. Like, a lot of it was, I was moving places to seek opportunity for myself. And it just, you know, never actually worked out. Did Tick leave? Unserious people leaving. Mock, you're the best person to ask. Do you have any facts or info about Zhush? Nah, that's alright. There is... Wait, where's Major been? I haven't seen Major in a long time, actually, now that I think about it. Oh, Major, I just thought about you, because Major was always on about Zhush. Well, Major, wherever you're at, buddy, I hope you're doing well. I'm just thinking of you. Oh, my goodness. Jeez, yeah, when was the last time I saw him in the chat? Huh, hope you're well, bud. Hope you're well. Yeah, that made me think of a few people who have come and gone. Loaf pops in every so often. And then, what was his name? Bread? No, Bread, not Bread Bunny. Ah, well. People come and people go. My one source for North Korean info is no longer on Facebook. Yeah. Life expectancy in the gulags was similar to general life expectancy of the USSR, except during World War II. Yeah. Well, and then they would leave the gulag and get a job provided by the state, right? Like, people hear the word gulag and their brain just shuts off. It's as simple as that. Theater work and barista stuff is incredibly hard work. Yeah. I lived in China too. It was amazing. Yeah. Oh, hey, I live in China right now. This is where I am. I live in China. I always try to make eye contact with everyone on the street. It's a little creepy, but it's my act of resistance. Whatever you need to do, Gritting. Content, you were lying? Content, you were lying? If I move, you're from Bangladesh, and if you move back there, it would be easy to visit or move to China if you wanted. Oh, how interesting. The front line is 750 miles long, so it's not easy to manage for sure. And the Ukrainians are probing constantly. The Ukrainians are constantly probing the line, dude. Like they wanna try to break through. So the idea that they're like managing to like push that big line forward, yeah, it's quite a struggle. I've watched documentaries of theater work and movie production work. It may look simple, but being there is a full mess. The fact we get movies and theater this well is amazing. Well, yeah. And it's sort of like... I feel like it really does come down to just, like, people want it. You know what I mean? Like, as much of a train wreck as I think today's modern culture is... It is like a testament to the will of the people who are just like, we want it. We want film and we want television, goddammit. Just make it. It doesn't matter if it's shitty. Let's go. Like all this Marvel shit, dude. I'm hoping I think it might actually be happening sooner than we think. That it's gonna go the way of the Western. That the Western gave way to mobster films, which gave way to the action hero, which gave way to blockbuster films. That's right, blockbuster films, like Independence Day, those sorts of films, like the big high-scale films, which gave way to superhero films. Like, that's sort of the lineage, if you started at the Western. And then pre-Western, it was like thrillers, like Hitchcock, and then before him, it was silent film comedians, like Chaplin. So Chaplin, The Stooges, Hitchcock, John Wayne, Clint Eastwood types. Then mobster films, action films, mobster films. Yeah, mobster films, action films. Yeah, more or less. Like there's like Planet of the Apes and that kind of stuff as well. Like high concept sort of science fiction films that sort of existed in that space. But really mobster films, and then action films, like fucking Rambo, shit like that. Then your big like summer blockbuster, Back to the Future. That existed through the 90s, the gold era of Disney. Yeah, and then like Marvel movies and shit. Yeah. What's next? What's the next era? Because I think superheroes have we've done it. Like they're good. Like we're checkmate. Did the superheroes? We got it right, and we're starting to get the like because westerns went through a commentary period of their own, right? Like the westerns started with this like glorification, and then end with like Tombstone, like movies that are like, but like this is what a western would actually be like, and like the career of John Wayne is actually the trajectory of the western, where he plays like the sheriff with the gun. You know, come on, partner, boom, 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 get all the guys, right? And then the last movie of his career that he actually won an Oscar for, he played like a burnt out drunk who was on had a real like arc of a character. He's like all burnt out, but he did one last redemptive arc. Got an Oscar for it, for God's sakes, and that really kind of was the arc of the western, where it was like, but this is what it would really look like actually. Like this idea of the like the hero and all that, that's fun. Like that's some like Marvel movie shit. But like western, like a guy actually living in the West like that would have a shitty life, and it would be really tough. And once you get to that phase of like what would this actually look like, and the genre starts to critique itself, or the genre starts to say like, okay, but stop romanticizing it. That's usually the end of it. And we've seen that a little bit with The Boys. The Boys, I think, are very much like that. But I suspect what will actually happen is that we'll get a Superman film that'll be like that. And then that'll be the end of the genre. And, yeah. And what comes next? I'll be curious to see it. Oh, I have a friend who wanted to do some work for a Ukrainian charity promoting anarchy. The charity turned them down for promoting anarchistic ideology, and they were confused as to why. They think it was some optics, liberals saying they didn't want to do it. Couldn't be that, because Ukraine is a goddamn Nazi state. Yeah. Then they told me that Ukraine on Fire was Russian propaganda. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like a serious organization full of serious people. Anemone, I miss my friend who would just send me random info on North Korea. She had a master's document of leftist literature on North Korea, which is where I learned most of what I know, which I had. She was the... What happened to her? What happened to her? Someone please tell me why every time an anarchist has to choose between states, they always pick NATO. Yeah, like why? I don't really get it either. I'm not an anarchist, so you'd have to ask an anarchist why that's the case. Broccoli cheddar rice, good to see you. Yetis, good to see you. It's such a blessing to have you guys here, man. Vladimir Stalin. If I find that master's doc, I'll share it in the Discord. It's really good info. Please do, because I'll admit it. Like I don't know as much as I'd like to know about North Korea. I feel like I've got, everybody's got holes in their knowledge. North Korea is a bit of a hole for me. I'd like to know more, as is the Yugoslavia situation. I don't know enough. It does seem to me, because I've been doing reading, I've been trying to brush up a little bit. More or less, it seems to me that Tito died, and usually what happens when a powerful leader dies is that there's a power struggle, and it just seems to me like the fascists started to do independence movements, and then the United States came in and supported them. That's more or less what I think happened. That like the guy that was keeping everything going and keeping everything strong and the icon of the nation died and didn't really get replaced by anybody, and the fascists saw their opportunity and started to get international funding, and Clinton bombed Kosovo. Seems to be what happened, more or less. Yeah, so we're missing a couple of people where our numbers are down, a bit down. No, dude, last week this channel had 30 consecutive people watching at one time for the first time. This channel's growing. In spite of the shadow ban that YouTube gave us, the TikTok thing, as much as it's annoying to deal with the TikTok guys, we're getting a lot of good people from TikTok. And a lot of viewers are coming in from TikTok for sure. So it's working. It's working. The channel's growing. Maybe not as swiftly as I would like, but swiftly enough. Vladimir Stalin killed 110 million pure Aryan blood German soldiers who were drafted and had no choice but to massacre villages in Eastern Europe. Yeah. Santora, our numbers are up exponentially from last year. Yeah. Never been this consistently high. Well, and subscriptions are also up. Like, since I've started stream, there was, of course, the plateau that happened because of the shadow ban. But since I've started streaming on TikTok, subscription numbers have started going up fairly rapidly. So it's working. I'm actually thinking that, and I'll have to pay some money to do this, but it's not a lot of money, so I think I could do it. I'm going to start multi-streaming. I'm going to start multicasting. I think I'm going to say it out loud to hopefully manifest my consciousness to actually do it. Get the multi-streaming so I can stream on multiple platforms at once, and try to spread the net a little bit. And I don't know what that's going to do, but I feel like, given the experiment of TikTok and how it actually has been fairly successful, I think I'm willing to cast a wider net. And especially like Twitch. Like, I really should be streaming on Twitch. Like, it's just kind of bonkers that I don't. Oh, Yetis, we just had a big talk about the East Palestine train derailment. Dude, what a nightmare. I even read an article. This article really goes through it from The Guardian. Like, it's just unbelievable. Like, it's unbelievable. The fact that the President of the United States or the Governor of Ohio didn't announce that this was happening to his people. Like, the fact that this isn't, like, that instead we're talking about a fucking balloon. We're a childish people. We're like, at least our government is. Like, this is what we should be discussing. We should be having big national conversations about this. Like, if a government exists for any reason, it's to prevent exactly this. And I bet you what's going to happen is that the owners of the railway are going to get a bailout. That's probably what's going to happen. Broccoli. People want a life, freedom, adventure, social connections, meaning, catharsis, revelation. The only place we can get this is through the movies. Our real lives, our routine. Clock in, clock out. Yeah, I think that's right, dude. Aristotle wrote some of the greatest treatises on the theater, because he was fascinated by the theater. He was fascinated not by the theater. He never actually got to see the Grecian theater. He was reading about the theater historically, like 400 years after it had fallen out of fashion. He was fascinated by it. He really was like, what the fuck was this? Why did this happen? That was the big question that he was really asking. Like, what in the fuck? People gathered in a room, like in a big, people built an enormous auditorium on the side of hills, which we still have. We've got these amphitheaters. They built these things. There was a stage where a person stood and 500 people simultaneously danced a choreographed dance in front of him while he read a script that was essentially saying, Zeus, please don't smite us. And they sat and watched this for hours. And the only thing that Aristotle could really come up with was that this was a way for the society to have a collective catharsis. One of the things that we do not do as a people, and we don't care about at all, is the concept of a collective catharsis. That the closest we get to something like a collective catharsis is elections. That it's a cultural event that theoretically matters to all of us, that we are all theoretically aware of. And so it has this sort of catharsis, or the idea of a catharsis in it. And intelligent politicians understand this, and so seek to find that catharsis, right? Like, I think Trump understood this. He understood the concept of a catharsis, that he was really a vengeance candidate, that he was going in there with a vengeance and condemning people, right? Which I think was like a real catharsis for lots of people, and made him a very iconic sort of a figure. And, you sort of imagine a small fishing community, right? Sending people out into the ocean in order to get fish. And occasionally a big storm happens and sometimes they don't come home. You know? The senselessness of that. Collective trauma. That they then play out on a stage in a fucking amphitheater. It's so that people can grieve. And it's so people can spend their emotion. That the emotion has been built in and that they can fucking take it and put it into the universe and say, even if it's just to say, fuck you. Right? But at least it's no longer, in your heart and in your balls, right? It's out in the world. And that collective catharsis is something that, again, if the concept of society has any meaning, it's to build this idea of a collective catharsis. Because we're experiencing collective trauma all the time. We're experiencing collective trauma. And there's no outlet for it, really. Like, these fucking dumbass Marvel movies are bullshit. Like, that's the reason why they suck. Because they don't actually provide a catharsis. I actually think that the Marvel movies are the antithesis of catharsis. They're the opposite of catharsis. That like, the last movie literally retconned the entire fucking thing with time travel. It's just, like, the most wanky, like, go fuck yourself. Oh, you want a catharsis? Get fucked. I guess we'll say Tony Stark died and sacrificed himself, but who cares? Time travel exists. Like, yeah, what happened in Ohio was a completely preventable atrocity and a direct attack on the working class Americans. That's a great way of saying it, dude. That's a fucking great way of saying it. It's the worst ecological disaster to hit America. There's radio silence from media to the government. Yeah, absolutely. A serious country would have the president of the United States be the one who broke the news. Like, that I think is really the fucking truth. That if you lived in a real country that was actually serious about informing its citizens or protecting its citizens, it would be the leader of that country that would take to the airwaves. They literally would take over the airwaves and release a simple statement in a speech. It is my duty to inform you that there has been a derailment. That vinyl chloride has been released into the atmosphere. This is an enormous catastrophe that we will be investigating to the best of our abilities. Thank you. God bless America. That didn't happen because we're not a serious country. We won't be a country much longer, I'm sure of it. Paolo. Just arrived. Why are we in my country? Italy. Just, I think, random, Paolo. Yeah, no, I wasn't talking about Italy. I think I was talking about Ukraine. Oh, I know what it was. I was talking about Yugoslavia. And just saying that I don't know that much about Yugoslavia. And so there's Italy. No Italian news. Good to see you, Paolo. Ziandu, maybe there'll be a huge influx of films about people uniting to destroy authority and oppressive systems. I mean, I think that started to happen. Like, you think about Mockingjay, right? There was all that there was sort of an influx of teen films that all kind of had that theme. But for obvious reasons, the capitalists have stopped it, right? Because I think they saw those films and then started to put the dots together. They're like, oh, wait a minute. This is about us. So I think they've put a stop to it. We're headed for science fiction, fantasy revival. I mean, I gotta tell you, I think that if I were the CIA and if I were like Hollywood and all that kind of stuff, I would be looking at Brandon Sanderson pretty closely. Right? Brandon Sanderson is like the fantasy guy at this exact moment. And given the success of Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, even though they fucked it up, and all of that kind of stuff, given the success of there's one I'm missing. There's a fantasy one that I'm completely missing. I can't think of it. But in any case, I think Brandon Sanderson, even though I haven't read any of his stuff, I can tell you that, like, he's the guy. Anytime I get talking with fantasy people, they're like, Brandon Sanderson stuff. Brandon Sanderson. I love Brandon Sanderson. And for fuck's sake, there's rumors that if George R. R. Martin dies and his work is unfinished, Brandon Sanderson will be the one to finish it. Like, he's the guy. in fantasy writing right now. So if I were like at the top of a movie thing, I would be like, let's take these Brandon Sanderson books, of which there's like, 50. Just start making films out of them. Just start making films out of them. Just start making films out of them. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. That's what I'd be doing. But I think there's something going on right now in the media system where I think that the people who are actually at the very top of the media system are stupid and detached. Not stupid. Stupid's not right. But detached. Right? Like, I think the clearest example I have of this kind of detachment, in order to make it really make sense, is Wednesday. That Tim Burton, Catherine Zeta-Jones, right? Like, you would think, like, yeah, Tim Burton, right? It's going to be decent. There's going to be some stuff, all that kind of stuff. But really what you ended up with is you ended up with a show that was very much like a boomer trying to appeal to his granddaughter. Like, that's really what it was like. And so it ended up being kind of cringy. Like, kind of just like, Like, it didn't quite work. It kind of felt like, because it was just like an old guy trying to convince me he was hip and cool, and he isn't. Like, that's the long and short of it. And, like, Burton just shouldn't have been the guy to tell that story. Because Burton's not a Gen Z. Burton's not a millennial. Burton's old. Like, Burton's old. Like, he had his moment, and it's no longer now. And I think that that's more or less what's happening in our media. That, sure, there's like the CIA angle and all that kind of stuff, but really the people who are actually at the top of this thing with the money, the people you've actually got to convince to be able to make stuff, are essentially just detached boomer types who are just kind of like occasionally you'll get one of them that's actually like, this is my last thing. I'm going to say this. And I think you're seeing that with somebody like Eastwood. I think Clint Eastwood is actually making some films that are like quietly powerful, even though he's kind of a Nazi. But, big surprise. The fucking guy with the shooting people with the fucking guns, kind of a Nazi. But like, his most recent film, My Name Is, I forget the name of it offhand. But like, you just listen to the plot of it and you're like, oh, that's like a quietly powerful film. Like, that's a real, he's really saying something about modern day America. And yeah. And I think you either get that, or you just kind of get guys who are sort of played out. And the reason why they get to make stuff is because they made something good 20 years ago. So people are like, he's tried and true, right? Well, we don't need tried and true anymore. We need people who are making risky things and doing risky stuff. But the people who have power and money don't care about risk. They care about power and money. And they have it all. So they don't need to take a risk. Right? Like, there's a reason why our culture is stagnating. It's because all of the people who have all the ideas have none of the money, and all the people who have all of the money don't care about those ideas. Like, that's why Disney sucks now. Because Disney doesn't need to listen to somebody. They literally only accept scripts internally from people that they vet for an ideology. And so they only get scripts from this extremely tight perspective, and all their shit sucks. Like, none of it is risky, none of it is interesting, they're not actually saying anything, they're not really taking positions anymore, right? Like, even positions like, believe in yourself. Like, they're not really taking positions anymore. Everything is just schlocky, dumb bullshit that boomers are trying to spoon feed to kids. And then the cultural reaction to that from the kids is just absurdism. Just anything else. Like, anything else is better than this. Like, I don't care if it's nonsense, crazy, stupid, idiotic, ridiculous, crazy, dumb, Dadaist bullshit. It's different than this. And that's good enough now. I noticed that when we were at lower profits with the shadow, or lower points, we had a tight group of regulars as far as I could tell. I'm noticing a few missing because I see that others we do. Yeah, there are people missing. Hey, Major! Major, my man, I was just talking about you, bud. I was just talking about you, bud. I felt like I hadn't seen you in a while. Oh my god, bud. Dude, you're the one that keeps talking about Zhush in the channel. What should I read? Tell me what to read. I'm on a reading kick. Technically, I'm listening to audiobooks on my commute, but it counts. God damn it, it counts. What should I read? Good to see you, bud. Yeah, Ohio, dude. It looks super bad. It looks super bad, dude. Bumbleguppy. I miss Bumbleguppy too. Yeah. I understand why Bumbleguppy doesn't hang out anymore. I get it. I need Yetis. Biden publicly threatening to arrest striking railway workers who wanted something like this would happen. Yeah, now it's happened. Biden saying nothing. Yeah. Because we know who he works for. Right? He doesn't work for the interests of the people. Like, we know who he works for. Oh, you're totally ignorant? What's happening in Ohio? Ohio catastrophe is a wake-up call. There was a train derailment of vinyl chloride that they burnt off, and it created and exploded, right? And it's created probably one of the largest ecological disasters on American soil ever. Some people are calling it a Chernobyl moment. There's a town, East Palestine. Thousands of people are definitely going to get cancer. All of the pets and animals in the town have died. It's an incredibly massive moment. Oh yeah, Witcher. Witcher is a good one. We're about to have a fucking split. Keep Wednesday out of your mouth. Wednesday was a success, though. I think Wednesday was a technical success. If you understand my meaning. Like, it made money, and I think people did watch it. And they'll make a second season, and they'll have the opportunity. Like, my number one complaint about Wednesday is that the entire point of the character is to, or the entire point of the Addams family generally, is to juxtapose their strangeness and their oddity to normal everyday society. That's the entire shtick, right? And they basically removed that dynamic completely. Surrounded her with people who are just as weird as she is, right? Like, she's not even close to the weirdest one. There are people, she hangs out with literal werewolves and shit, like straight up vampires and such. Like, it's so the entire point of the Addams family, even and honestly, guys, like, I gotta tell you, dude, please go watch Raul Julia's 90s Addams Family. Just please actually go watch it again if you haven't. And it's really, really obvious. Like, it's just better. It's just better. And, like, plainly better. Like, it's better crafted, it's better created, it's a more interesting story. It's there's just more going on. It keeps your attention better, right? Like Wednesday is flabby. It's a flab. They could have cut like entire episodes out of that fucking thing, and I just feel like I want my media to be better. I want my media to be better. And when I watched the Addams Family movies again, which I highly suggest you do, it's definitely worth your time. You're just gonna see like a really good product. You're just gonna see a really good movie. I'm fueled up my T31. I can't abide this. This is what I was talking about, bud. Remember when I said that if we ever met in real life, we'd have a screaming match? Here we are. Right? Tell me I'm wrong. Here we are. Is the stream cutting out for anyone else? Oh, yeah. No. Cotton, I'm not going to fight you. I'm no pushback there. Jenna Ortega is a gigabay. Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. Like, you're not gonna hear me say anything other than that, obviously. Major poster, the master doc, I was talking about North Korea. What? I missed something. Thank you. Mentioning Zhush must have summoned me. Did you put it on the... Fantastic, dude. Fantastic, bud. I'll take a look at that for sure. I'm gonna get you. Perfect. Perfect, dude. Because Zhush is one of those things that, like, I want to... I think my local library is going to have all the Soviet stuff, and probably a good amount of the Chinese stuff as well. But something like Zhush is a little, like, it's probably unlikely that they're going to have, like, not Xi Jinping, the Kim family. Probably pretty unlikely that Kim Il-sung's work will get, you know, will make it. So it's good to get that kind of stuff. Let me see if I can find an audiobook version of it and listen to that stuff on my ride. Oh. You know what, man? Here's one from Rainer. You guys know I've been reading a lot of Rainer stuff on the chat, on the stream recently, and this is no exception. The US will lose the new Cold War with China, then collapse will come for it. Oh, Paolo, that's common. Yeah, I don't think there's nothing I can do about it. I don't know what YouTube pings on. I don't know what it does, and I've tried to do stuff to avoid it but YouTube is just like, nope. Sometimes, simple as that. Just try again. Try and figure out, like, when you're framing what it is you're saying, what word or what turn of phrase do you think you would be using that YouTube would try to pluck? And then just, like, reword it or put some weird shit, put spaces and stuff. Like, I don't understand it either, bud. And they don't tell me. That's the other part of it. All right. I'm fascinated by the ideological battle that's emerged in American political discourse over whether or not China should be viewed favorably. Because this battle is the 21st century's equivalent of the Cold War era debates within the US over the USSR. Once again, Marxist-Leninists and other principled anti-imperialists are going up against the rightist, liberals, and anti-communist leftists who prefer to believe the lies of the US State Department is promoting about Washington's greatest adversary. But things have changed compared to the last Cold War. Despite what the partisans of neoliberal capitalism and US NATO imperialism want us to believe, amid this Cold War, Washington finds itself sinking into geopolitical isolation and terminal economic decline. Since Washington won the Cold War, the U.S. empire has been experiencing an unprecedented amount of decline, and there's abundant evidence that this will be the generation when the U.S. experiences the same kind of imperial implosion that's happened to all of history's past fallen empires. Already, Washington has lost its military primacy in the Indo-Pacific to China. The era of a U.S.-dominated Southwest Asia has ended. The U.S. and the EU have descended into inter-imperialist economic warfare. The shift towards a multipolar world has become cemented amid the strengthening of a Russian-Chinese military alliance and China's economic rise. And Washington has so far failed to achieve regime change in Cuba, Nicaragua, Venezuela, Syria, Iran, Bolivia, Lebanon, Belarus, or Thailand. At the center of the motives behind Washington's current micromilitarism, the term for when declining empires engage in reckless warfare to try to regain lost territory, is China. China is proving to be a more formidable challenger to the U.S. than the Soviet Union was, with China's Belt and Road Initiative working to undo the global inequities of Western neocolonialism by providing third world countries the tools for economic and infrastructural development. This alone is deeply alarming the members of the U.S. imperialist intelligentsia, and the craftiest among them are ruthlessly working to manipulate the narrative around China. Take, for example, John Bolton, the Iraq invasion war criminal who's on record for saying that if I had to say something I knew was false to protect American national security, I would do it. Keep this statement of Bolton's in mind while reading the following paragraph from the Washington Post op-ed that he wrote a few days into the Biden presidency. Understanding the nature of Beijing's threat is also critical. This is not an ideological Cold War struggle. China is not pursuing Marxist theory, although its domestic policies certainly have nothing to recommend them. Xi is not only crushing Uyghurs and other non-Han minorities, but also extinguishing religious freedom and crushing Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement. American minds do not take kindly to civil-military fusion or social credit scores, whereby Beijing measures the worthiness of its own citizens. This is not communism at work, but authoritarianism, pure and simple. Misreading it as Marxism 2.0 will impede strategic clarity, not enhance it. In this essay, Bolton may be considering the long game of the ideological battle that's going on within the core of the empire. If his pledge to knowingly promote falsehoods in order to prevent the empire's internal stability has any role behind his choice of words in this propaganda piece, he's trying to crush hope for the communist movement within the US by portraying China as not truly Marxist. This is something that the more manipulative anti-Chinese Cold War propagandists have often done. If people in the US who are drifting towards class consciousness become convinced that China is just another capitalist empire, despite the country being a workers' democracy whose foreign policy model drastically differs from that of actual imperialist powers, they'll not believe that socialism and anti-imperialism are on the rise throughout the globe. They'll also be more inclined to believe the lies Bolton repeats about Chinese minority persecution and Hong Kong oppression. These kinds of ideological manipulations are all about preparing for the most important war that the US empire is going to have to fight during the 21st century, the war against a class uprising within US borders. If the groups that will lead the inevitable class revolts of these coming decades view China and other Marxist-Leninist countries as authoritarian and not truly socialist, they'll be open to imperialist cooperation. They'll also be easily steered away from the Marxist-Leninist goals of organizing under a democratic centralist party, overthrowing the capitalist state, and forming a dictatorship of the proletariat. Such is the outcome that the capitalist state and its lackeys are working feverishly to prevent. In this last decade, an American society has drifted closer towards destabilization amidst the perpetual depression it's been in since 2008. U.S. military analysis has already begun putting out reports which anticipate a near future of internal warfare for the empire. One of these reports has envisioned special operations forces having to be sent into the peripheries of the U.S. megacities to contain guerrilla uprisings. Another has declared that the rapidly accelerating militarization which climate crisis-related natural disasters have been bringing to American society is only beginning, with the country's future under climate collapse essentially being one of endless internal war. Another has described near-future scenarios where the army will be sent in to invade and occupy U.S. localities, and where the government will need to shut off internet and cell phone access within the occupied areas, while ensuring that local media only puts out official U.S. military propaganda. When these kinds of domestic warfare scenarios manifest, and let's not pretend they won't happen, the Pentagon has described them as unavoidable. The ideological battle that's happening right now will be taken to its logical conclusion. As the state cracks down with the most extreme force possible, the reactionary militias and vigilantes carrying out terror campaigns amid the chaos, and marginalized peoples find themselves in tremendous danger, the groups that will be most reliable at fighting against this encroaching violence are the ones which haven't been co-opted by the empire. The revolutionary cadre members who weren't swayed by the lies of the war propagandists will likely be among those willing to carve out resistance pockets, not give into the state's demands, and work towards a revolution in the same vein as ones which have liberated other places from the forces of empire. At that point, the question will no longer be whether or not the U.S. empire can win the great power competition. It will be whether or not the U.S. state can survive. And if the state can't, the question will then become whether the reactionaries or the revolutionaries prevail and come to fill the power vacuum. Compton. John is a strength faith meathead. It's the only explanation. You know what's so funny about that is that I'm going through a run of Elden Ring, although I think I've abandoned it. That was strength faith, and right now I'm going through Dark Souls 1, and it's basically a strength build that I'm sort of leaning and thinking like maybe I could do faith. So you got me, bud. You got me. Although to be fair, the only build that I actually beat Elden Ring with, like defeated the final boss and everything, was a dexterity build. Just a straight up dexterity build. Dexterity bleed, but then the last boss is immune to bleed, so I respec to just straight up dexterity. With Bloodhound's step, you're just like swish, swap, swap, swish, swap, swap. You're like super anime. Yeah, I just rang the first bell in Dark Souls 1, and then I've been tooling around, and now I'm going down into like the graveyard area, and I'm sure there's a necromancer right there, but I went down, died, and I'm like, I've got like 6,000 runes, and I know I'm going to lose them. I think I just gotta do it and just be like, I'm gonna lose these runes. That's fine. These runes are gone. That's fine. Just gonna go down there, kill this guy. It's fine. I want to go through the Dark Souls games. Like, I originally bought Dark Souls 1 when it was like super on sale, and I played it once and then rang the first bell and was just like, fuck this game, and I stopped playing it. But then I left the Dark Souls series alone because I was just like, these games, what the fuck are these games? But then when I played Elden Ring, I was like, this game is a masterpiece. Like, Elden Ring is absolutely a masterpiece. If you try to convince me anything other than that, then you are wrong. And I'm just not going to even engage in the conversation. And Elden Ring was good. Like, Elden Ring was a phenomenally good game. And everybody has said to me, oh, you finished Elden Ring? Dude, you're going to finish the rest of those games if you play them and you actually try to finish them. And so now I'm playing Dark Souls 1 and I'm like, oh yeah, this game is actually not as hard. Like, Elden Ring was harder than this game. And like, the bosses are way easier. It's really obvious. And, yeah. The trouble is that I'm just about to... The Diablo 2 ladder is just about to reset, and I'm definitely going to go hog on that. No way about it. Yeah, I play video games. What are you going to do about it? Fucking boomers. Diablo 2, dude. What a great game. The game of my childhood. See how easy it is to get me to talk about video games, dude? You just literally need to do like a reference to a video game. You don't even need to talk about the video game. That's how easy it is. I wish you the best of luck in Blighttown. Yes. Why do all of these games have a thing like this? Like, the floor is lava. Like, that's basically it. Like, the floor is lava. Fuck that walrus. Yeah, fuck you, Bolton, right? Like, John Bolton. Literally confessing in open to war crimes. Just like, yeah, we do coups. You know, we do some cooing. Yep. We're a normal country, you know. It's normal for countries to coup other countries. That's just a normal thing that normal countries do. We're not Nazis. Well, Elden Ring had an actual, like, it had Volcano Manor. That's a fucking lava level. But, like, a poison level. Like, yeah, I know what you're talking about, dude. Back on to more serious stuff. Thank you, Paolo. What do you think is the role of the EU in this Cold War? Economically speaking, I think it's essential to tip the balance. No. I think that the EU has to make a choice. And the Ukraine war was a way for the Americans to force the choice on them. And I think they're going to get economically isolated with the United States for a period of time. And that eventually the pain of that isolation will become so great that, and the United States will become so fractious and fractured that eventually the EU is going to have to pivot and rejoin the world community. Like, it's going to have to do that. Because, like, America's getting isolated. Because it's obviously a rogue terrorist state. Like, it's so obvious that that's the case. And right now, the EU is, like, playing ball because of the relationship of NATO. But you already have people, like Donald Trump during his presidency was saying, let's get rid of NATO. Like, what? Or at the very least, he was saying America should get out of NATO. Let the Europeans pay for their own defense. Like, what are we doing there? What's the point of that? And I think a time will come where that will happen, right? Especially after this failure. And and if that happens, then basically the EU is NATO, more or less. Like, it's technically different, but, like, America's not involved in it. And either I think Europe will collapse into internal conflict like the United States is going to, or, and I think this is actually the most likely thing to happen, or it will just pivot to China and basically say to the rest of the world, we want to rejoin the international community, the real international community. And they will. Because I think China and the rest, like China, India, and all the rest of them, are going to see how that's going to be beneficial for them. To allow Europe into what is actually going to be the international community. And because if Europe does the opposite, like if Europe stays the course with America and just decides, yeah, we're going to just stay with America, then they're just going to be economically isolated. That's all. Like, America's not really doing anything for them. Like, there are resources, but those resources are going to run out. Like, oil doesn't last forever. And the American empire is just losing its ability to enforce its will in the world. Like, it can go in and blow shit up, sure, but, like, it can't really get anything done. It doesn't have any mechanism by which to maintain administrative power anywhere. And in comes China, and it's just basically like an administrative powerhouse that seems to be building itself up diplomatically, which the Americans don't know how to do. Like, they literally don't know how to do that. And I think that's actually going to be the death knell, more than anything, is that we're entering a phase where the people who are beginning to take the most amount of power on the world stage are the people who know how to negotiate and know how to make good deals in good faith. And are actually interested in, like, oh, this is good for us, it's good for you. Wonderful. People who are interested in building partnerships. People who are interested in seeing the success of another country, right? People who are good neighbors and are being neighborly. Like, these are the people who are actually gaining power on the world stage. And the people who are the rogue terrorist assholes are diminishing. Because nobody wants to deal with them. Why would you? The American game has always been, you'll deal with us because you have to. Well, now they don't have to. And so America's playing a losing game. And even if they started to pivot now, right at this moment, if America started to pivot, they don't have any negotiators, they don't have any diplomats. All they have are rogue terrorist organizations that know how to murder and torture people. They don't have anybody trained, nor do they have anybody who knows how to train anybody. So they're going to begin a process of teaching and training people now, and that first generation of people are going to be bad at it. And because they're Americans, they're going to absolutely refuse to read anything from anybody who isn't white. And because there isn't anything written by any white dudes about how to negotiate and be a good person on the world stage and actually try to be a partner, they're going to grab somebody like fucking, I don't know, like fucking Milton, fucking Friedman or something, right? We'll have a whole era, like a resurgence of Friedmanism, right? Or they'll grab like some abstract dumb nonsense like Sun Tzu's Art of War and be like, this is how to negotiate like a shark tiger, right? And there'll be all that dumb alpha male stupid Andrew Tate bullshit that happens. And the whole thing will fail because they're going up against fucking masters. Like, we are at a moment right now where it's gotten really obvious that the people that we should be paying attention to for how to actually do this are the Chinese. And it would be stupid to say otherwise at this stage in the game. It would be objectively ridiculous. Like trying to tell me that you shouldn't pay attention to Magnus Carlsen in chess or Kasparov in chess. Like, just what do you, like you're watching a game that Kasparov or Magnus Carlsen is playing and you're trying to critique them. Like, shut up. Like, you don't know what you're talking about compared to these guys, for sure. And it's the same with China. We should be listening to them. We should be reading the material that's coming out of them. We should be learning from them. And America won't. Because Manifest Destiny, we're the greatest country in the world, all that kind of garbage. Just garbage. And you can see it even within the quote-unquote leftist movements that are trying to rise up in America. Like, the leftist movements are trying to rise up in America, and what are they doing? Right? They're trying to amalgamate Marxism into American imperialism. Right? That's what Caleb Maupin and all that group has always been trying to do. The figure of Lincoln and all the American like iconography and all this. So they're trying to cling on to that, when the reality is that all of that needs to be washed away. All of it needs to be relegated into the dustbin of history. That you put it in a museum and you label it the time we were fucking complete Nazis. Like, literal, like, rogue state terrorist idiot assholes. Here's our past. This is what we were. And then this happened. We cut the line and washed it away and began anew. Because that's what they're going to do. And they're going to have to. They're not going to have another option at the end of the day. But that's not going to happen for 100 years. Like, people are going to go through 100 years of humiliation. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be absolutely fucking brutal. And I think Europe, the EU, and Australia will be the one to turn first. Just because of the geographical importance. But it'll happen to Europe eventually. Essentially, Europe will look at America as it collapses into this 100 years of humiliation, this despotic terrorist state, that is just going to be an internal police state, and it's going to be impossible to avoid. You'll see it with your fucking eyes, right? And I think the thing that'll be the most scary is the stuff that gets released that the Americans think will be good. Like the level of psychotic propaganda that's going to come out. It's, you know, those stories that come out that are like, wow, what a heartwarming story. An 80-year-old works 3 jobs. Wow. Right? That are actually psychotic. That's what the empire will start releasing to the rest of the world with this idea that, like, this is the good picture. This is the entrepreneurial spirit of the American, you know, all that kind of stuff. And it'll be like literally fascist Nazi propaganda that we'll look at and be like, whoa. And the Americans will be like, that makes us good. Like, this is the kind of shit that we're talking about today. Hey, Skies, how you doing? Going good today, bud. Going good today. And so the Europeans will look at that and look at the absolute demonic shit that's going to come out of America. And then they'll turn and take a look at China. And China will be like, hey, would you like to trade some commodities with us? We've been making lots of cool things. I hope you like them. I hope you're doing well over there. And they're going to go, well, I know which way I'm turning. Right? And they'll look at, like, the relationship between China and India, India's reindustrialization. They'll look down at Africa and Africa's industrialization. They'll look at the Middle East, that literally the Americans only maybe a decade ago were literally carpet bombing, and that place will be industrializing. They'll even look over at Russia, and Russia will be like stable, everything will be fine. And they'll all be working together with each other, sending resources around, trying to build up their own little regions collectively together. You know, they'll have like little minor disputes. Maybe there'll be little border scuffles every so often, all that kind of stuff. And Europe will be like, yeah, we've got some stuff to trade too. And it'll be as simple as that. And the first shot across the bow, as far as any American is concerned. I mean, for me, there's been a million shots across the bow, but Americans are so thick that it's going to take a big one. It's going to be when Australia bails. Australia is going to bail on America, guys. Like, and it's going to be, like, America actually thinks that it's going to walk over to Australia and put an ultimatum on the table. That's what America is going to do to Australia. Because America only knows how to be a psychopathic, like, Nazi bully. It doesn't know how to do anything else. So it's going to walk over to Australia and put an ultimatum on the table and say China or America. Australia's going to pick China. It doesn't want to. It wants to just, why can't we all just get along? Like, why can't we trade? You know, I don't know why the government tried to stop war. They know it's never going to happen. War is hardwired into the human brain. Fights will always happen. No point in trying to stop it. I disagree. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think that human civilizations and human peoples of all sorts have done war. And empires do come up and they have their war moment. But there is such a thing as, like, senseless warring for no other reason than to war. And then there is such a thing as a war that exists between two peoples trying to work something out. Like, I'm, of course, theoretically anti-war. And the most dramatic of wars are always the wars in which you don't know which side is right. That's where the real, true human drama comes from, where something is happening that is probably larger than both of those peoples, and the only resolution that they can find is some kind of conflict one way or the other. And you're kind of sitting there going like, yeah, that's tough. That's tough. It's a tough situation. It's tough for everybody. But this idea that, like, we'll always fight, even if we have all the resources, even if we have all the stuff, even if everything's there, I think that's kind of a nihilistic way of looking at things. I just don't think that, like, there's a difference between, like, fighting and, like, full-scale imperialist war, you know? And it seems to me like the Europeans have full-scale imperialist war on lock. And there are also scales of it, you know? Like, Europe and America have basically been in perpetual war for centuries. And just seem to not be able to stop it. Whereas the rest of the world don't do that. Like, the rest of the world don't fall into this perpetual cycle of war. Oh, I don't know. I don't have my sound set up, Kaya. I don't have my sound set up, so it's going to be shitty sound. Yeah, here. Let's take a quick look. Oh, yeah, this. Yeah, honest government ads, for sure. I just don't have my sound set up, Kaya, for it, so the video will be shitty. That's why I don't, yeah, sorry. Paolo, unfortunately, Europe detachment from U.S. is a distant future. Maybe not as distant as you think, but my country is walking down the worst path. Yeah, a damn neo-fascist party. Is that the Italian government? Oh, yeah, we know all about that, bud. Perfect timing for it, too, eh? Perfect timing to get some neo-fascists in Italy. Yeah, Mussolini was fine. Mussolini... no, I shouldn't say Mussolini was fine. The leader of that country, I forget her name offhand, but she literally said that Mussolini was the greatest leader Italy ever had. I think it was, like, in the modern era, so she wasn't including, like, fucking Roman, you know. pretty fucking crazy, dude. Like, pretty fucking crazy that there's literally a fascist leader in power while we are, like, having a war in Ukraine. The Germans are sending tanks to Ukraine while the Russians are fighting on this border, like, against neo-Nazis, no less. It's pretty nuts. Like, the threat of nuclear war is so high right now. Like, it's so fucking high. Like, when World War II was happening, countries were building and researching and trying to find out how to do nuclear bombs. Now we've got thousands of them. We got thousands of these fucking things. Like, and the boomers are like, just get a better job. Just get a better job. You just need to go out and get a job. Dude, even if I could go out and quote unquote get a better job, what the fuck is this place? What are you talking about? Ah, it's always been this way. No, it fucking hasn't, you goddamn boomer. What war between superpowers was happening when you were fucking working? Oh yeah, you're talking about when your country was carpet bombing Vietnam? Fucking baby. Ugh. What a fucking world this is, man. Georgia Maloney. Yeah, thank you, Major. What a fucking world this is. Are you gonna run for mayor, John? Nah. No, dude, we all know it's gonna be some corporate stooge. Like, we all know all the money is gonna get behind. I am gonna support Isabella. Isabella is running for mayor, and I think Isabella is exactly the right person to bring attention to the plight of the disabled in this city. And that's exactly how she's going to run, right? And Isabella is somebody I've done protests with and all of this for a couple of years now, in fact. And she ran for mayor last time. She's going to run again. She asked me if I would help her. I said yes. And of course, she's not going to become the mayor. I mean, let's be real about it. But she's exactly the right person to bring attention to the abandonment of the disabled in the city, if not the country. And my hope and my goal would be that she manages to get on a stage with some other candidates, because like things are fucked. Things are fucked as fucked gets. And if we're not going to look out for the most vulnerable around us, then we're not going to look out for anybody. It's real straightforward. Oh. Yeah, this is what the Chinese said about the balloon case. Balloon case demonstrates U.S. hysteria vis-a-vis China. No shit. Inside climate news. I'm just going to do a rapid fire here. We got 20 minutes left on the clock. Twice as much land in developing nations will be swamped by rising seas than previously projected, new research shows. American capitalism. It's my absolute... I should actually hang on to this. For the people who are... No, I shouldn't hang. It doesn't matter. The people who come in here and are all like, when has capitalism ever failed? Because if you show them something like this, they'll just go, oh, you know what? It's just the normal cycles. That's just the normal cycles. The climate always changes. It always changes. That's what'll happen. No fucking point. Hang on to it. You got it, bud. If anybody's saying don't hang on to it or hang on to it, hang on to it. You got it, bud. Done. For you, Santora. Just let me know if I'm ever in a conversation with somebody and you're like, wait, that inside climate news, show them that one. You got it, bud. And you watch. You watch what's going to happen, Santora. I'm going to put it in front of them. And they're going to go, oh, you know, the climate, it changes normally. It's normal for the climate to change normally. Okay, bud. Okay. Yeah, every time the government has to pass a regulation to correct to the market, that's a failure of capitalism. Yeah, I mean, technically that's true. Like, I would argue that it sort of depends, to be fair, it sort of depends what you mean by a failure of capitalism, right? Like, if you're a Nazi, like most of the pro-capitalist people are at this point, then capitalism's working fine. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do. Climate change denial is rare, even among capitalists, at least where I live. Yeah. America is still pretty entrenched, dude. Still pretty entrenched. Like the entire Republican Party, for example. Like, really let that sink in, Paolo. The entire, to an individual, Republican Party denies the existence of climate change. The entire party. I shouldn't say that. There's one of them. I forget his name offhand, but one of them says, yeah, climate change is real, but there's nothing we can do about it. So, I would say that it's a pretty widespread opinion in America. If it changes normally, why build a hazard zone and waste resources? Yeah, dude, that's thinking farther ahead than literally any of these guys can think. Like, some of these guys, I'm surprised, can tie their shoes. Yeah, every bailout is a failure. That's a good one, actually, Kaya. That's a really good one. Every bailout is a failure. I like that one a lot, actually. Like, the 2008 bailout is a complete and total failure. Like, are you fucking kidding me? You literally bailed out the people responsible for the crime. Like, unbelievable. I mean, the Jeffrey Epstein pedophile island, I would consider that a failure. Yeah, the New Deal was the attempt to correct the capitalist failure. Yeah, that's my big critique for the communists and socialists during that era, is that they let the capitalists keep the means of production. They took the concessions. They shouldn't have. They should have just walked into the White House. Like for real. They should have just walked into the White House. Said, that's it. It's over. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, wheelchair man. Watson, good to see you, bud. Dealing with the climate crisis would, by necessity, bring capitalism into question. Yeah. It's just like... It's the celebration... Yeah. That's exactly right, Watson. The New Deal was a trade of reform instead of system change. We've all seen how that doesn't work. Like, it generated this one generation of people who are now telling us all to just get jobs, right? Just get a job, it's fine. When I was in high school, I had a 9th grade education, and I decided to stop going to school, and I walked across the factory, and I got a job that bought me a house, supported a wife, a car, 3 kids. You could just do that. Just shake his hand. Shake his hand, say you're a good worker and a good man, you'll get a job right away. If I can do it, you can do it. Like, these guys fucking still exist. Can you believe it? I fucking can. Just get a job. Just go get a job. It's fine. Just go get a job. What's the problem? Just go get a job. I wish I had like a portal that I could like open and just see like 20 years into the future. That'd be cool. Cause like, yeah, dude. Well, there's nothing else to say. Like, if you're actually saying that shit out loud, you're too stupid to know how stupid you are. Like, that's really what it is. It's like that John Cleese phrase that there's like people who are too stupid to know how stupid they are. And usually those people are so stupid to know how stupid they are, but they're also proud of their stupidity. That's the other part about it. That's why I call it the third pillar of the unholy trinity of capitalism, right? The praise of stupidity. I always forget what the Dunning-Kruger effect is, dude. Every single time it's brought up, I gotta look at. I gotta look at it. Dunning-Kruger effect. Oh, yeah. I remember now. I remember. I don't need to look at this, but I'm going to. When a person's lack of knowledge and skills in a certain area cause them to overestimate their own competence. Yeah, Jordan Peterson is a living, breathing Dunning-Kruger effect. Yeah. That, like, because I know how to turn pipes really good, and I'm good with widgets and wadgets, or I can connect wires real good, that means I have a strong systemic analysis of my society. Now I'm being told I have white privilege and should be able to get any job, and they ignore I'm disabled and trans. Yeah. Who cares? Just get a job. Just get a job. Yeah, that's the only people we elect in the U.S. Yeah, that's the problem, dude. And the thing that I think is so wild, man, and I've talked about this on the channel a lot, so I won't like bang the pulpit too loudly on this, but like we are so fucked because not only are the people who are in power absolutely asinine and clueless, but the people who are directly behind them are also asinine and clueless. Like, we are fucked. That it's going to be like a generation is going to have to clear out, and then a generation after them, before we can even begin to be heard and taken seriously. Like for real. Like, do you actually think you're going to see Marxism in like actual seriously discussed in mainstream discourse? Do you think you're going to have a serious conversation about Marxism in the next 40 years? I fucking don't. Command Genius, my email should be in the description. Just send me an email, okay, bud? I'll make an exception for you, bud. I know your situation. We need to get the Canadian Communists a gift on the leftist mafia. I don't even know what that is. Who are the leftist mafia? They sound cool. The CBC has been having Marxist son lately. Well, we're getting desperate. Sure, Command. No, I understand your situation, bud. I'll help you out. Well, honestly, you'll help me out, to be honest. We'll help each other out. There's some good old win-win diplomacy right there, bud. What else do I have here? Yeah. Medical assisted dying has gone too far in Canada. So now they are allowing children between the ages of 14 and 17, both with terminal and non-terminal illnesses, they should be allowed to choose to die by suicide with medical assistance, and they should be able to do so without informing the parents. Without informing the parents. Like... Because I've never met a suicidal teenager before in my life. I've never met a suicidal teenager in my life. Yeah, I think Watson... Okay, David Dole, Lance from the Surfs. The problem that happens with these guys, like, those guys are bigger than I am by a lot. And for them, why would they ever stoop down and pick me up? You know what I mean? That's more or less my thinking. That for them, Lance has had Richard Wolff on his show. Like, he wants to be dealing with big players. So, like, what do I actually bring to the table? Like, I mean, I think that, like, I would be an interesting person to talk to and be like an interesting sounding board, and we could have some interesting conversations, but I don't know that they would see it that way. Especially like David Dole. Like, David Dole's not really an interviewer. Lance is a little bit more... His show's a little bit more, calm. But, like, I think from their perspective, I don't know why they would have me on. That's sort of my thinking. Mr. Comer! Ah, you came back. Good to see you, bud. What is my opinion on North Korea? So I'm still formulating my full opinion on North Korea because I haven't actually read the work. But more or less, what I think has happened is that during the period of time when America was blowing the shit out of Southeast Asia, they also blew the shit out of North Korea. That America took over South Korea and basically colonized it. And while it colonized North Korea and started to develop it, it laid waste to North Korea completely. The communists took over and basically rebuilt North Korea and have been defending it ever since. More or less my opinion. Like, when I get into conversations about Korea with Americans, they seem to refuse to acknowledge that the whole place was leveled. That just like, the whole place was just leveled to the ground. Like literally all of the infrastructure in North Korea was blown up. 20% of the population was killed. Like, it's enormous trauma. An enormous trauma that Westerners tend to just ignore. And if they do acknowledge that it happened, they go, North Korea fought first! Which is total nonsense. Just like, you'd have to be, like, absolutely thick. Like, yeah, how dare North Korea fight back? So, go as Macho Mark's Johnny Savage. Oh, yeah, brother! I'm here to tell you, the communists are taking over. Oh, yeah. Yeah, imagine a country fighting on their own soil. Yeah, like in some kind of, I don't know, let's say civil war. Who knows? Lance and David are boring pricks. I think that one of my big laments, like if I was to go back and do it all over again, one of my big laments was not pushing in on YouTube right away. Like, I wish I had just done a YouTube channel like this straight away. Because I think that guys like Lance and David and Vosh and Destiny really exist just because they were the first out the gate. And people like Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan's like this too. That these guys are just kind of the first guys out the gate. And right now, I think most of them are just coasting on momentum. That they don't really... And I shouldn't say this, like, Lance has done some interesting stuff. And I don't find Lance to be, like boring, per se. But, like, none of them are showmen. You know what I mean? Like, none of them do funny voices and shit. Hey! But I don't want to dunk on David Dole and I don't like doing takedowns. I'm not a fan. I don't think I'd do that. Like, I really, like, I remember when Bad Empanada did a video about the Uyghur genocide, and I thought to myself, I didn't agree with his analysis, and I thought, am I going to do like a quote-unquote takedown video? And I decided not to, because I never really do want to go after other people who I think are doing good work and are also leftists. That if I communicate with these guys, I think it would be to try to build something. And I don't want, like, because I don't think we can afford to create discord. And we should instead be trying to build alliances with one another. But how do you turn that into effective content for people to consume? I guess is a good question. It's why the quote-unquote debate bro stuff does well. Because there's like conflict and people are yelling, and so it must be meaningful even though it's garbage. All of it is garbage. So you have to like find how do you actually make something interesting, worth watching, worth paying attention to, something that you feel like you got something out of, while simultaneously making it not based on conflict. Like, we love conflict. We're conflict driven, for sure. Like, drama. Drama is conflict. Like, that's the heart of it. So, yeah. 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 I thought we were supposed to prevent teen suicides. Isn't this self-signed eugenics? Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if you've mentioned it tonight. Bad Empanada has taken Beau of the Fifth Column, Justin King to task. It's pretty pleasing. Okay. Again, like, I'm just not that... Like, why isn't Bad Empanada... Like, you know who I really like? I really like Climate Town. Or Cody Johnson. Like, these guys that are actually going after powerful people. You know? Like, that's sort of my thinking, more or less. It's like, why are we really... Like, who really does care about Beau of the Fifth Column? Really? Like, Beau of the Fifth Column's, like, not... Like, especially... I think Bad Empanada's bigger than that. Like, he's got a bigger fan base than that. Like, I just don't... Like, what's he gaining from it, really? Like... I don't know. Bigger fish to fry, if you ask me. Here I am saying I don't want to do critiques of other leftists doing a critique of a leftist, but, like, I don't know. That's how I feel. Holy fucking sensual fuck that is sideways fucking sprinting? What? What is this? Compton. Well, I find 90% of leftist content is pretty bad, not going to lie. Yeah, because honestly, like, a lot of leftist content, well, leftists are disorganized to begin, right? Leftists are disorganized to begin with, right? So there's not really much by way of stability. And a lot of leftists, I don't want to say all leftists, obviously, but most leftists aren't really rooted in theory of any kind, right? Like... there are exceptions, obviously. I think, like, Midwestern Marx. Midwestern Marx is very, very knowledgeable and very informative. And I think when he does quote-unquote takedowns, it's because he's fighting back. Like, I don't ever see him going out and trying to seek a fight with a creator of some kind, because he's more interested in just, like, talking about theory and staying in the theory. And he does a really, really good job of that. And but most leftists, like, so they end up kind of opining in, like, a utopian sort of a place, and they don't really... So it all kind of this... there's a lot of wheel spinning. There's nothing actionable, right? There's a lot of, like, we've got to start acting like this. You know? Who cares? Okay. You know? Like, no, what we need to do is gather in mass and surround the halls of power. That's what we need to do. Like, that's what we need to do. And anything short of that. But if you're not willing to say that, and if you're not willing to get to that point, and also if you're not really entrenched in any kind of theory, you don't really know any of that kind of stuff, then it just comes down to your own personality. And if I want to be really frank, most people don't cultivate a personality worth watching. Like, if I wanted to be, like, as brutal as possible. Like, they know something's gone wrong. They don't know who to talk to about it. They don't know who to organize with. They feel lost and detached, and so they're just turning to social media and talking to it because they don't really feel like they have anybody else to talk to. And they're doing so in this kind of hope that it'll connect to something. But at the end of the day, they don't really know anything, and they're not actually interesting people. And they're still good people, because they care, and they know that what they're seeing is wrong. But, yeah. That's all we're in. Climate Town? Yeah, you could just look up Climate Town on YouTube. Here, let's do it. Let's do it together while we're talking about shit that's actually kind of worth listening to. Climate Town. Climate Town. Let's all go down to Climate Town. Climate Town. Climate Town. Let's see Lance do that shit. Climate Town, This is the fella here. He is really focused on climate change issues, specifically about he really goes after big oil and coal and all of these things, as you can see. Right? Let's just click on his videos. Coal is bleeding money. Supreme Court declares war on the environment. The news media is selling you out. Who actually controls gas prices? What your bank really does with your money. U.S. oil and gas companies trying to profit from war in Ukraine. Our suburbs bleeding America dry. It's time to break up our gas stoves, right? Time to break up with our gas stoves. So these are the types of things that he makes. And as you can see, he's basically doing one every couple of months, right? One every month, right? And the reason why it takes him a month to come out with about a half-hour long video is because his stuff is extremely well researched, well put together, and funny. Funny in a very kind of cute and clever sort of a way. And he himself is a fairly charming fellow, right? You can, like, this I think tells the tale of the tape, right? The kind of shit that he'll do. And, yeah, I think he's doing good work. He's presenting very well. If you don't know Climate Town, I think you should start watching Climate Town. Definitely get it in there. It's literally a half hour every month. And a half hour with him is better than a year with a fucking CNN or something. Why is there a lot of ML hate? Most Marxist-Leninists are just reactionary losers cosplaying as Marxists. There's a lot of reasons why there's a lot of Marxist-Leninist hate, Command Genius. It comes from a lot of different places. Comes from all sides. I mean, obviously the capitalists want to dunk on Marxist-Leninists because we are their ideological enemy, right? Marxist-Leninists seek the overthrow of capital, so if you're pro-capital, then you have to be against Marxist-Leninism from the beginning. And honestly, I think that, like, Marxist-Leninists get a lot of hate because sometimes they can be really smug, right? That's all. Because we keep being right, and they hate that shit. And then also, I think, like, in reference to what Watson's talking about, there's like there's an upsurgence of, like, because Marxist-Leninist is just a term to describe neo-Stalinist twits who want authoritarianism. Yeah. I mean, Watson comes in as a... would it be fair to say that you're a Trotskyist, Watson? Would that be fair? I don't want to put a label on you. I don't care to do that, but you definitely pitch from Trotsky's mound. And I think that touches on something else as well, is that I think that leftists themselves get in each other's business and really create titles for themselves. I don't really care to do that for myself, right? Outside of just communist. Yeah, it would. Trotskyist, Orthodox Marxist, very good. And Command Genius, don't get into it, dude. Don't get into it. Watson's very knowledgeable. I appreciate his perspective a lot. He comes in here and he's always spitting the truth. And the truth is that when the pro-capitalist idiots come in here, the Stalinists, the tankies, the Trotskyists, like all of the people with all their the anarchists, there's a couple of anarchists in the chat for sure. They all turn and look at the capitalists with equal ire, and they just start fucking bombing shit, right? So here comes the Stalinists. Yeah. Yeah, here we go. So, other fellow, Adam, you were asking some more news. Cody Johnson, some more news. These guys have gotten to the point now where they're doing an hour a week. And it is him, this is it. It's him standing there, or sitting there, basically doing a news segment with the kind of classic, like, the classic talking head kind of thing. He has managed to capture sort of the manic absurdity of today's moment. And what he's really, really good at is going deep on some pretty interesting, like, why being poor is so expensive. What's the deal with airlines? Why is housing so expensive? But then also the talented Mr. Musk, where he does like pretty extensive takedowns of very powerful people like Elon Musk. I wouldn't describe him as communist, but he definitely keeps saying a lot of interesting stuff that convinces me that he would listen and talk to a communist. I think that's where I would put Cody Johnson in this kind of on this political rainbow. That, or you know what I'm saying. And Cody Johnson is always informed, very very articulate, funny. He definitely leans harder into the comedy and silliness. He's very silly, which I think is great. Honestly, it's why not be silly? And like he'll constantly say, like, one of the things he always says is just like money isn't real. He always says money isn't real, and just keeps kind of bringing that into the mix. Money isn't real. So I really value that about him, the reminding of everybody that money isn't real. Well-informed, well-researched. He's against Ben Shapiro. Read Ben Shapiro's third grade book report on fascism. He's done big takedowns of Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Jordan Peterson, all this kind of stuff. Definitely an ally, and entertaining on top of that. So, yeah, some more news to just spectacular takedown of quote-unquote Dr. Jordan Peterson, yeah. I'm a fan of communism, but I'm not really sure if I'm ML or something else. Yeah, I mean, I just don't really feel the need to plant my feet. I think that's really what it comes down to. Like, I don't inherently see the value of it. You know? Like, I am absolutely positive. Oh yeah, his shit on Ben Shapiro has always been the best, dude. Like, Shapiro's crazy, dude. Anyway. Oh yeah, the puppet. But what's funny, Kaya, is he has stopped using Warmbo so much, and he knows that the reaction to Warmbo has been pretty much your reaction, and so he has built that into the larger script now. Oh, my pleasure, Adam. This is the stuff that I watch. Like, these are the people who I watch. Like, I don't really, like, I don't watch a guy like me, because I'm the guy like me. But a big reason why I want to do this show is because when I watch people who do this, I'm like, that's not me, and that's not what I want to see. So who's doing what I want to see? Nobody. Okay. So I guess it's me. So I want to create the content I want to see, and so here it is. Me. And it turns out that the content that I want to see is just how beautiful and amazing I am. That's right. This is all just a vanity project for my own ego. Ha ha! Do you watch Step Back or Second Thought? I don't know of Step Back, but Second Thought. Second Thought's good. Second Thought, who was it? Hakeem and Europunk, I think his name is, or Yugopunk. They created a group. They're doing like a 3-group podcast thing now. And basically they took their 3 fan bases and amalgamated them together, which lifted all of their profiles. Yugopunk. Yugopunk, yeah. And, but what it did, unfortunately, So they started releasing podcasts where they're together to program. But anytime I listen to it, I don't like those guys as in that position and at that kind of thing. Because I think in order to do that kind of thing, there's got to be like a shock jock kind of a quality to keep it energetic and keep it good. And they're not like that. They're all smart guys and they know their stuff. But like, I really prefer it when they do their research videos. Like Hakeem especially. I found Hakeem's research video to be really, really good. And I gotta be really honest, I don't know that much about Hugo. I don't know that much about him. The deprogram is revisionist cringe. Wow, Command Genius, man. You're just here with a fucking machete today. You're just like, fuck you. Fuck you. That's fine, dude. Yeah, I think that's sort of where I've landed with those guys, is that I liked them better when they weren't together. But I understand why they're together. I don't hate that they're together, but I understand why, and I understand why they did it, but I liked their content better when they weren't. Nobody watches for the puppet, dude. Nobody watches for Warmbo. Absolutely nobody watches for Warmbo. Where's the TikTok people? We're not doing a TikTok stream today, so there are no TikTok people. I shouldn't say no. There was one who said a bunch of dumb shit and then left immediately. Like, so stupid it wasn't even worth banning them. Like, it was so fucking stupid. Ugh. Anything else? Anything else that I really watch? Anytime I see an interview with Russell Bentley, I'll watch it. Anytime I see an interview with Scott Ritter, I'll watch it. Because I think Scott Ritter's really got his finger on what's actually going on in the Ukraine war. John Mearsheimer, if John Mearsheimer does a lecture. Chris Hedges, if he does anything. Warmbo is funny. Hot take. I wish communists weren't always on the defense. You know what, Mock? That's an interesting... Haifong, Danny Haifong, yeah. He's an excellent commentator. I wish communists weren't always on the defense. This is something that I actually thought about recently, like within the last couple of weeks. So the clearest example of this I'll give is the Uyghur genocide narrative, right? Where people will come in and do the Uyghur genocide thing with China. And I've just realized, like, I don't need to convince these guys that that's a fake bullshit narrative. I can literally just say to them, you don't give a fuck about this. Your country has been bombing Muslims for decades. Like, shut up. It's embarrassing what you're doing. And this is actually making me realize, yeah, Richard Bedhurst, yeah, the new Atlas. These are excellent names. Patrick Lancaster. It's making me realize that, like, we don't really need to constantly be defending. Like, we can absolutely... Like, if somebody comes in and comes at us, we can just push back easily. Like, these capitalists don't have legs to stand on. I don't know Paul Miller. Let's take a quick look. Paul Miller. I don't know who this guy is, dude. Sorry. I was hoping I'd just be able to type in Paul Miller and it would pop up and it would be great. Probably not Paul Miller Hamilton with 21 subscribers. God bless you, sir. Clowning out frustration. Probably not. Yeah, sorry, dude. I don't know Paul Miller. So that's my opinion. Considering the activity in Europe, the revolutionary potential is right in front of us. The question is, what line of organizing needs to be taken? I've been thinking about that a lot recently. What I'm doing here, I think, is good, and I feel like it's helping people have more serious conversations about what should be done, because I feel like a lot of leftist content isn't that a shame. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that's bad, but like a lot of leftist content is really just like, oh wow, the Ohio catastrophe, that's crazy. There's a lot of that. A lot of like, oh no, that's crazy. Oh shit. Followed up by like, I'm going to write my congressman. You know? And there isn't really serious conversation about how your congressman doesn't give a fuck. That you've experienced a coup. Your leaders are not in office. Your leaders are shooting themselves into space and shit. Like, the actual leaders of this place are the billionaire oligarchy that owns it. Like, stop bullshitting yourself. And so I'm glad that I'm doing this, and I'm certainly glad for you guys. I'm certainly glad for you guys you guys are gems. All of you are amazing people, and I'm hoping. But I do think that the best way to actually seriously organize and to actually get organized in a serious way is locally. The trouble, of course, being that we're all fucking exhausted as shit and there's no local organizations to be had. So you're basically starting from scratch. And I'm getting to the point now where I'm starting to recognize that, like, even a city-based organization is too big. That, like, I need to begin actually thinking about organizing locally, like, in my district where I live. And how do I go about doing that? How do I go about actually getting people and, like, meeting in person? How does that kind of organizational structure actually take place? And how do you actually get going in that kind of thing? Because, like, in many ways, I am simply just stabilizing in this post-COVID period. I would say that, like, right now is the moment where I'm the most stable. That my capitalist employment is basically set, more or less. I don't think that's going to get disrupted any more than it already has, although there are constant disruptions. And the work that I'm doing outside of that, which is this channel, has stabilized. Like, I'm pretty standard, pretty regular here. And so now to add another element to that, which is to start gathering people locally in my own district. And that's not even including, you know, the protests I go to and the protests I organize. And so to add on that third element of local, like really local organization, I think is necessary. I think it's something that I've been really contemplating and thinking about. But that's actually the scariest one. Because unlike going downtown, right, going, you know, a fair distance and organizing a protest with other people from around the city, and unlike this, the internet, right, organizing with the people in my building, let's say, bit close to the bone. Bit close to the bone. Paul Miller is a far-right activist who was arrested and was released a few days ago. Well, I tend not to work too closely with the far-right. I don't know anything about him and I don't know the situation. Check step back when you have a chance. Thank you, sir. Or, ma'am, my mistake. I'm still so pissed America's Redacted Tonight was removed and purged. Yeah, I agree, dude. I agree. You can still find Lee Camp. You can still find Lee Camp, I think. Where the hell did YouTube go? You'll be YouTube. I think if you just look for Lee Camp. Moment of clarity with Lee Camp. Am I not subscribed to this? Boom. So, how the U.S. took out pipelines, Nord Stream truth, prisoners to sell organs for early release, right? Lee Camp's always been a champion. I'm surprised that I hadn't found him earlier. Well, I'm glad that I did now. Yeah, CNN freak out over a balloon, chem weapon cover-up revealed, media lying about the economy, right? Lee Camp's doing good work. And the fact that he only has 42,000 subscribers is an affront, honestly. Like, it is. It's an affront. And it is very much because he got booted from Redacted Tonight. Because of the purge that happened. Yeah. His videos were my essay work and resources for sources. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely, dude. Like, Lee Camp's a champ. My hope for Lee has always been that he would drop the comedy shit. That's always been sort of my hope for him, because he sucks at it. It's as simple as that. Like, he always was presenting himself as like a comedian news guy, but he sucks at the comedy. And he was never good. It was never funny. And but he was always a strong presenter and a strong voice, a unique voice. And because of his passion and obvious and the position that he took, he was always worth watching and always valuable. But anytime he tried to do the comedy shit, I was just like, get rid of that shit, dude. Like, please, it hurts me. It hurts me to watch him. But great stream. If you think of Zhush, I'll be there. All right, with that note, moment of clarity with Lee Camp. I went 20 minutes over, in fact. All right, we're at the end. We did it. I got to go to bed. I got to work tomorrow. Capitalism. Always remember, guys, each and every one of you, thank you, Command Genius. I'll get right back to you right away, okay, bud? Each and every one of you is a quantum being, walking around in quantum energy. The billionaire class, spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.